No, I did, mine wasn't used. I didn't use mine. Yeah.
Are you leaving that open now? No, I'm going to shut it.
Yeah.
Oh, like it's left on forever. Hold on.
Forever and ever. I am
Hello?
freezing in there. It was so cold in there.
You should have turned it on. Oh,
my hands.
I thought it felt fabulous.
Hello?
I'm always. That's it. That's it.
My sweater's right there. I wonder who they are.
All right. No. No, sir, not at all. Are we, who are we
Okay.
on Mike? Okay. Right, are we all ready?
No, I just confirmed that 591 Stratton family
Hello, Rita?
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you, Wallace.
All right.
Okay, we're going to call
I
the
can't
meeting
hear
back
you.
to order. So I am calling the meeting back to order, and where are we? Pledge of Allegiance. I'm, okay, please stand for the pledge. Keith, would you lead us in the pledge?
Sure. Repeat with me. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. If everyone would bow with me, please. Lord, we just thank you so much for all that you do and all that you provide for us and for bringing us here together today, Lord. We pray that you would bless each of us with wisdom and give us words to speak and direction. We pray that you would be with our city. We pray that you would be with all those that are sick, and we pray especially for our mayor, Lord. Just be with her, give her energy and endurance, and heal her, Lord. And we thank you for all that you do, and we pray all these things in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, we have the attorney's report.
Sure, and before I give the report, I just want to. It's on? Testing. Can you hear me okay? Just on a personal note, that was the first time in my 20 years, and Lord knows how many meetings they've ever asked me to lead the pledge, believe it or not.
Well, then it won't be the last, sir.
First time. So anyway, City Council met in closed session to discuss a long list of items. And then there was an item added. I'll start with the added item, which is pending litigation, City of Ridgecrest versus Cohen. After receiving a report from the city attorney, there was no reportable action on that matter. City Council also met in closed session to discuss two tort claims for damages. The first one was the tort claim of Clifford Leach. City Council directed staff to send a notice of denial of that claim. City Council also met in closed session to discuss the claim of liability claim involving Michael Emerson. City Council directed staff to accept payment from Geico Insurance Company in the amount of $25,000, but also directed staff to come back with a report for closed session about the potential for collecting the balance of the claim. City Council met in closed session to discuss pending litigation entitled Ridgecrest versus Southern California Edison. There is no reportable action taken in closed session on that item. City Council also met in closed session to discuss the litigation City of Ridgecrest versus County of Kern. Again, there was no reportable action. Finally, the City Council met in closed session to discuss real property negotiations involving two separate properties that are identified on the agenda. After receiving a report from the agency negotiator, again, we do not have anything to report at this time on either of those two properties. Madam Mayor, that concludes the report out of closed session.
Thank you. We have no presentations tonight, correct? And so we will begin public comment. Persons wishing to address the council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time pursuant to the Brown Act. The City Council will not take action on an item that does not appear on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. Public comment section of the agenda is limited to a total of 1 hour. Each speaker is asked to provide his or her name. Anybody wishing to make public comment, please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Linda Fuller. I'm Commissioner for the Department of Aging for Eastern Kern County, and I manage the Rose Varga Foundation. We do the medical loan equipment. When the senior services was still in full swing over at 409 Drummond, they did the Rose Varga program, and they closed their doors, and someone else got the bid. So I'm trying to follow up and keep Rose Varga's legend and the fabulous job that she did in the community. So anyone that has any kind of medical equipment they would be willing or like to donate, we would like that it be in reasonable order. It's very difficult if we get junk and trash. It's a safety issue. And also, because we run strictly on donations, we don't even have gas, water, or electricity in the building at the present time because we have no money to get any of the utilities open. So anyone that is interested, the phone number that you can call is 760-382-8608. And this is for anybody, any age. You don't have to be a senior. It just happened to be a senior lady that I believe next week there's going to be an article in the paper since we just took this over, and that way we can get the information out into the community. And I would like to thank you for the opportunity to be able to do that for Ridgecrest.
Linda, may I ask a question? The hospital is not continuing that service any longer from that facility?
The hospital did not get that part of it. I took it before the hospital went on bid.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to keep Rose's name going just exactly the way, out of respect to her and what she did and that, what we try to do for the community.
Thank you. Okay, next, please.
Stan Rotora. I have two topics, and I'll try to make it brief. First topic is during the recent budget cycle, we did not appropriate $300,000 of Measure V funds. The reason given was that the city couldn't come up with a $300,000 road project in a timely manner to get it in the budget. Now, regardless of what I think of that particular idea, my feeling is we ought to have a lot of available projects that we can come up with. What I'm suggesting and requesting is that the council put together a project for those remaining $300,000 of Measure B funds. As badly as our streets need the work done, I think it's totally inappropriate to not appropriate all of those funds. Second topic is basically what I sent to you all earlier this week in an email suggesting that we reduce the sewer fees by $90 per account. Right now we're building up a slush fund that we don't need, and I think it's time that we actually took a hard look at that and decided whether we really want to put the additional burden on the public to come up with additional monies that quite frankly aren't needed. And I'd be willing to go over the numbers with any of you at any time at whenever you're available. We just don't need to keep those fees this high. Be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. It's because I'm going to be talking about the Brown Act and registering your names and so forth. I'm going to make use of a provision of the Brown Act tonight, and I'm going to call myself Sam Adams. according to the Brown Act, I do not actually have to identify myself, so tonight I'm not going to do that. You'll understand why shortly. Before I do that, I want to vigorously support what Stan just said on both counts. Elaborate a little bit on the sewer fund. That was put forward, I believe, 4 years ago. And three of us, including former city councilman, vigorously opposed these rate increases, pointed out in detail why we did not need them. The council at that time went ahead and put them forward. And now, as Stan has continued to point out, we have large amounts of money in there. We're not sure that we need it, but we sure don't need to keep taxing our citizens just to keep enlarging the fund if it's not necessary. So I also ask to please look at that in great detail and decide if we do need to continue doing that. Now I want to get to the letter that I filed today with the city clerk regarding the action taken on June the 7th and enacting certain meeting rules of various kinds. The one section which I'm going to address tonight is requiring citizens to register for the right to speak at council meetings. I'll just briefly kind of go over the section itself. It says this particular section, which is under addressing the council during the meeting section, says to ensure efficient proceedings and allow for maximum of public testimony on items that are expected to be controversial, the city council may require those desiring to speak to be registered prior to the commencement of the meeting. The city council will make this determination upon the adoption of the agenda. Under these circumstances, the public will be requested by the city clerk to complete a speaker card and submit it to the city clerk. Each member of the public who has submitted a card will be called upon to speak based in order. We had, I think, at least two fairly lengthy discussions, at least on my part, city org meeting over this, which I opposed this and pointed out the problems with logistics and problems with council deciding at the time stated on here to adopt these rules and then getting things in place for people to sign cards and so forth and so on, but mainly just the fact that government code 54953.3 of the Brown Act says that people basically shall not be required as condition to attendance at a meeting of a legislative body of a local agency, and that attendance includes participating. It shall not be required to register his or her name. And so it was thrown up, which I thought was kind of a silly argument. Oh, you can call yourself Batman or something else. I've done this, call myself by a different name one time. Tonight, I don't think I've ever done it before. I don't think anybody else in this city is going to be willing to do that. They're going to feel like they may get mocked. So that's not going to happen. And anyway, it says basically if you're going to do this, you have to give lots of notice somewhere around and so forth, telling people that the signing, registering, and completion is voluntary and so forth. So I've addressed this, and council went ahead and passed it on. So now I'm serving you with a cure and correct letter, and basically I'm saying I'm trying to point out to you, and I hope you'll read it so you understand it, that this violates Government Code 54953.3, that citizens have the right to attend without registering, and that includes speak on issues brought forth before the council, and also to even do that anonymously. In addition, First Amendment right to free speech rights must be carefully upheld. The council must demonstrate a compelling interest in enacting rules of this sort, and any rules of this sort have to be narrowly tailored in order to protect the citizens' free speech. The council has failed to do so with this rule. So in the letter, it says, I demand that you retract that section of the meeting rules, and you have 30 days from this receipt of this to inform me what you're going to do about it, and we'll see what happens after that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Matthews, address is on file. First of all, I want to say I support Mr. Neal's letter, and if action needs to be taken, I may support him also, and we can become a committee of two. But I think I know where there's maybe a third person, and then it'll be a committee of 3. I've been noticing, and probably everybody else has, that it's been a little warm lately. And I'm reading that we have cooling centers open. The main one here is right next door in the Kerr-McGee Center. However, it also states that the Kerr-McGee Center is not open on Sundays. Do you think Mother Nature is going to listen to that schedule? Huh? I don't think so. People need to be cool on Sundays just as well. Now, maybe they can go to church.
So I told them
What's all that?
I'll be on the call.
Some,
Okay. Well, it's
Some
number
people's
it's number
cell phone.
it's number 9 on the agenda.
please turn off your cell phones.
Gary, back there in the back. Parsons.
All
Thank you.
right.
All right. Bye bye.
Oh, we must have a new interference sound system. Anyway, okay. I think that we should at least look for volunteers or a pack type person that we could keep that center open on Sundays as well. And hopefully maybe it'll cool down in the evenings when they decide to close it so that it's not too hot. But what I've been noticing lately, the temperature really stays up there late in the evening. The other thing I would like to ask about, and it doesn't have to be answered tonight, but we had some officer-involved shootings lately. And on one of them, there was quite a number of officers who fired their weapons, and then for some period of time, which I don't know what that period of time is, maybe it's still going on, they are put on administrative leave. I think in cases like that where there are many witnesses, this is an overkill. And I'm suspecting that it's affecting the function of the police departments and the other law enforcement agencies involved. I would like to see and hear from the chief as to how this may be affecting and what we might be able to do to put such a burden on these officers who are doing their duty. Okay, now the other thing is that tonight there was a couple of property negotiations on closed session, and I have mentioned this before, and I think maybe other people have also, that in the description of the property on the agenda, state where it is. The APN numbers, yeah, we can go look them up, but it's time consuming. And whether or not it turns out to be something that we're interested in, who knows? But if we have a description of what the address is or where the property is, then we can make a quick decision. And that's not just me, that's everybody else, probably including you people. Okay, I guess that's all I have for this evening. However, I'm glad to hear that the Rose Varga Fund is still active, and I urge everybody to do what they can to help support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Bill Campbell. I had a thank you for this great country we live in, where we can talk about things. It's a great country. So I have two topics I want to talk about right now. Linda was up here a few minutes ago, and I had a friend about a week ago asked me if I knew he thought his daughter was up in San Francisco area and she's by herself. So he's going to move her back down to Ridgecrest for chemo. She needed chemo treatments and things like that. And he asked me, do you know someplace I could get a bed? I'm thinking, I really don't know where you can get a bed for a couple months or whatever she needs. And then I remember Linda running this program, and she said she had 3 beds. So that's what I want to emphasize her program, because it worked out good for my friend. My second topic is the wastewater. I've talked to other people about this. 5 years ago or 4 years ago, when the city council, I agreed with them, they should raise that number up. I was paying $120 back then for wastewater for a year, my property tax. And my last bill was $360. So that's triple what we were doing. And I called the city about it, and he said, everybody in my class of house, I guess my house is worth about $180,000 or something like that, I'm not sure. But he said everybody had the same raises. And I'm thinking, well, Ridgecrest, if we keep raising our property tax, that's not a come on to come live here. And when you find out you've got to pay a couple of $1,000s to live in the desert, I think we're going to do better with the wastewater not going up anymore. Anyway, I thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment? Thank you.
Evening, Council, Mayor, Ronald Porter.
Sir.
First, I am going to say one thing about the Prop 218 and the sewer plant. I brought this up when they passed it. It was not lawfully passed then. They were going to do the research on it and find out. It has never been done, and if there's a serious challenge, I believe you will not be found in compliance, especially the study didn't cover the additional last 2 raises. But I'm going to move on to something else, and that's the new rules that you wrote. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend the meeting for the meeting. I don't normally go this far, but other than 2 council members sitting up there tonight, I find that they are intentionally and deliberately ignoring the law when they wrote this thing. I personally sat at this dais twice, at least, and read that statute to the council regarding registration of people coming in. But the most important part about that new rules, and I asked because I wanted to help deliver an orderly meeting for the public and the council, what were you trying to cure by these rules? To this date, I've never gotten an answer. It's because we can. Well, we don't need to write laws and rules because we can. We need to write laws and rules that actually have a decent function to operate. I read over the new rules. I found 5 violations of statutes in those rules. 5. And I don't understand why we feel the need to violate the Brown Act when the primary intent of the Brown Act is to be read at all times in favor of the public's right to participate in their government. The council's job and the government's job is to be as open as possible to the people. And I can continue to see this council wanting to move the opposite direction. They should want the people to come up here, give them their ideas, tell them what the problems are so they can actually utilize that resource. I see the new changes as we don't want to utilize the resource of all these minds in this wonderful city that we have, one of the most intellectual cities in the entire country, but we don't want to utilize it. I don't understand why. I think we should want to utilize it. I think we want to hear from the people, but why do we go down a road where we don't? I mean, it's just like you set this timer on, and I understand for public comment, but when we have something up and 3 or 4 people are going to talk, why don't we have the exchange? In history, we've never set that 5-minute timer on everyone that walked up here. I don't understand why we need to do it now. I understand if there's a lot of speakers, we need to have an orderly meeting and move on. But we don't need to do it just because we can. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I want to be able to communicate with you. You want to be able to communicate with me. It shouldn't all be done behind closed doors where I go corner you somewhere and talk. Why can't we have a discussion right in front of all the people so they all understand? That's why we have representatives to have that communication. Not behind closed doors, not secretly over the email. Let's have it let's put it in the public where it belongs. And if that's wrong, then I'm wrong. I'm a big boy, I can take it. But I see these new rules as have no value whatsoever. And like I said, well, if there's a problem, let's address it. But no one could identify a problem to allow me to even help them address it. Now, like I said, there's 2 new council members up there that weren't here when I read that, but the other ones have heard it. And I don't understand why they feel that they can ignore the law and place the council above the law. That's very disturbing to me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lemieux, do you have something you'd like to say? I see you twitching over there.
I mean, I think we talked about this as recently as the last meeting.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken. Do you want me to, I don't want to appear dismissive.
Nor do we. That was the reason why I asked you if you would address that, since I would love to.
Sure. The Brown Act says that you cannot cause somebody to, what? Okay, I'm sorry, you can't hear me? Can you hear me okay now? How about this? Careful what you wish for, I guess, huh?
Dennis, we don't have that mic fixed yet.
So it is correct that the Brown Act says that you cannot require members of the public to provide their personal information as a condition of attending the meeting. It does not say anything about cards or filling out cards per se. When we discussed this matter in the past, it was explained that the purpose of the cards is not to collect personal information from parties. The purpose of the card is so that in the event that we've got a particularly robust and contentious meeting, and in an effort of making sure that everybody gets to speak and that it's perceived that the timing of the speech is fair, that we can randomize the public and invite them to come up and talk. So the card is for purposes of establishing a placeholder. It's not necessary for a party to put in any personal information. They can list off, they can identify themselves however they want to identify themselves, and when their name is called, they're invited to come up to the podium and speak. And this is not to prevent people from speaking. The purpose of this rule is to make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak, because our meetings are finite in duration. The amount of time we can spend on a given topic is finite, and therefore we have to budget the amount of time we have in order to maximize public participation. And it was believed by the City Council that this method would do that. So we do not believe it violates the Brown Act. I did receive Mr. Neal's letter to the contrary. It requires a formal response. We'll be providing a formal response. But I gave you a little preview.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I'm going to respond to it since you're going to have me criticized. The fact is the Brown Act is to be read in most favorably to the person. He's reading it most favorable to the council. The fact is, it says you cannot be required. And if you only take those cards, as this new rules say, and say, okay, at the end, maybe we'll let you speak. Well, the fact is the rules are very clear on that fact. And he's reading it, he's interpreting it in favor of the council, when if every case decision says exactly the opposite, to be interpreted in favor of the people's right to speak and participate in the government.
Sir, wait a minute. We're not telling you cannot speak. We're asking you to fill out those cards.
Right.
Those people that do not fill out the cards, you are more than welcome to speak. You will just speak at the end of those people who have filled out the cards.
Which is a chilling effect, which you do not have a right to do.
Okay.
I'm trying to explain what the Brown Act says. It's to be read in favor of the public. And
the Brown Act doesn't give each individual member of the public the right to decide when they speak on the program. You understand that?
You understand it does. And I'm going to tell you why.
Well, if it does, that would be anarchy.
No.
Everybody wants to speak first, Ron.
No, you're reading it in favor of the council. I didn't say anything about it.
There is the strategy that Mr. Neal mentioned about speaking afterwards, so you can comment on what came before. But people have opinions about when they want to speak.
I understand. And I'm not saying you can come up off agenda and speak. I'm saying You can't do this, and you can't show a single court decision, because I've looked through every one of them I can find that will support your opinion.
I don't believe there are any court opinions on the use of cards for public ordering of public speaking.
Guess what? There are.
And furthermore, I can tell you that every public entity that I'm aware of uses them to some extent. We're actually unusual in that we don't use them for everything.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to comment on that one. Because this guy does it, doesn't make it legal. It just means he gets away with it.
Okay. Is there any other public comment? Okay, the next item is council announcements. Mr. Maurer?
I have none.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I have one, and it's actually for Mr. Wallace that I do believe is on the telephone, a conference call, and that is the annual conference of the City of Lee that will take place on September the 13th through the 15th in Sacramento. I think Councilwoman.
We've all got.
Wallace and I are both going to be in attendance.
All right, so you have this flyer?
Yes.
That's the only one I have, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Lindsay?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, the only thing I would like to say, I would like to offer my sincere thanks and that of the councils to the police officers involved. I know there's still resolution to be involved, to come, but at some point in time, I just want to offer our sincere thanks for a job well done. Okay, on the consent calendar, I'm going to read all the items. There are a number of them, and I'm going to start. Proposed action, item number 1, proposed action to approve draft minutes of the City of Ridgecrest Council Successor Redevelopment Agency Financing Authority Housing Authority regular meeting dated May 17th, 2017. Proposed action number 2, proposed action to approve draft minutes of the City of Ridgecrest City Council Successor Redevelopment Agency Financing Authority Housing Authority special meeting dated May 30th, 2017. Proposed action number 3, to approve draft minutes of the City of Ridgecrest City Council Successor Redevelopment Agency Financing Authority Housing Authority special meeting dated May 31st, 2017. Number 4, proposed action to approve draft minutes of the City of Ridgecrest City Council Successor Redevelopment Agency Financing Authority Housing Authority special meeting dated June 8th, 2017. Number 5, proposed action to approve draft minutes of the City of Ridgecrest City Council Successor Redevelopment Agency Financing Authority Housing Authority regular meeting dated June 7th, 2017. Item number 6, proposed action for approval and increased appropriations of fiscal year 2016-17 budget for the city attorney's services regarding potential litigation. Number 7, proposed action to award a construction contract to CLC Construction Incorporated for the Inyakern Transfer Station project in the amount of $51,720 and authorize the city manager to sign the contract. Number 8, receive and file updated pavement management system, PMS. Proposed action to approve a resolution to approve fiscal year 17-18. I'm sorry, I skipped number 8. Okay. Anybody wanting to pull on the council any of those items?
Number 6.
Number 6. Anybody in the public wishing to pull any of the items? Sir? 8. Okay, pulling items 6 and 8, motion to approve 1 through 5, number 7.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Maurer?
Aye.
Mr. Thomas?
Aye.
Mayor Breeden?
Aye.
Ms. Stevens?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, so number 6, Ty?
So I wanted to pull this item because I pulled it just a few meetings ago when we approved $50,000 over the $80,000 that we've already approved. And so I'm just concerned because we were told the $50,000 was going to be enough to get us through the end of the year. And I understand, I'm not upset with you. I'm more directing this towards you, because then last month we received a bill for in total $60,000 for 1 month of legal services, and that is quite astonishing to me. So, and I don't know if there's a different way we can figure out how to do this to where we don't get a surprise like that in the mail, because I don't think you were expecting that. And so I'm just, is there a better system of how we can track these things? Because you said you get particular budgets for task orders. If we could see where we're at on those budgets for the task orders, I don't know. I just don't like seeing, I'm looking across last year, and this is the highest bill we've received over the last year. So that just concerns me. And I don't know what we can do about it, because I don't want to just keep signing off, you know, $50,000 every other month. So.
Well, you are correct that it is an unusually high bill. It's relating to litigation services. Obviously, we can't talk about the specific nature of those services in the public setting without waiving privileges. But as you know, and we've talked about, when those litigation matters are initially assigned, we present a total budget for the city and we track our expenses against those budgets. If we exceed the budgets or look like we're going to exceed the budget, then we bring it in for an adjustment in closed session. I don't believe that any of these matters are exceeding the current budgets. I guess the issue is that we did a bunch of work on a number of items in 1 month as opposed to the month before or the month after. And so, but it's consistent, as I understand it, it's consistent with the budgets that we've presented, and which were approved at the time the matter is considered. I don't know what else to tell you about that.
Okay. Well, I mean, one item is $40,000 alone. So is that normal?
Yes, that is, you're referring to the Calvi case, and understand that, let's see how much we can talk about publicly on this one.
Sorry, I'm just, yeah.
That case was originally set to start trial in this month, the beginning of this month. That we successfully got that trial continued to August. The reason the trial was continued from June to August is that there was, as you'll recall, a new damages theory that was presented for the first time. We essentially, I guess the nice way of putting it is, got sandbagged. It required us to immediately hire a number of experts in order to evaluate the claims, and we're doing that work. I think I'm just mentioning this to sort of refresh your recollection on the discussion we had. Bear in mind that on that particular case, there will be additional billing. The claimant is currently claiming against the city $2 million in damages. That trial is set to start in August. As you'll recall, there is insurance for the majority of that, the vast majority of that. But we have currently scheduled for July, we have a number of expert witness depositions that have to take place based on these new claims, including neurologists and rehabilitation experts, and we have had to hire our own in order to counter their experts. Okay. We've consulted with the district's insurance on this, so we've gotten approval for insurance, and that is what that's about. So I would expect that you will get another high bill in July, but I also want to remind you that our SIR caps out at $100,000, in which case from that point on insurance is paid. So it's not an infinite bill. Does that make it clear what I'm...
Yes, I don't
want to go into too much more detail because
I just want to make sure that we have a week left in this year. hopefully we're not going to get another bill of this magnitude this month.
You will. He already told us.
Well, he said for July, but I didn't. So is 50,000 going to be enough to cover us then?
Well, but remember, the SIR caps out at $100,000
Per case, is that?
So we're pretty close to that. So at some point, the insurance company is going to be paying the bill. And as we've talked about in closed session, we will need, in order to defend ourselves in that case, you're going to have to spend money and we will hit that cap. Again, it's a $2 million lawsuit.
Okay. And are we doing anything about the groundwater portion, because that amount has been adding up significantly as well? Like we're sitting at about over $50,000 for that. Are we?
I did not attend the PSA meeting this month, so you won't be getting a bill for that. I'm also not available to attend in August, so we'll be skipping that one too. I think the plan is for me to be there in July when the board will be considering hiring a water resources manager. Otherwise, I continue to act as directed by the city council.
I think one of the things we need to look at is we are coming to the point in time where we will look at, there will not be so many legal issues and time issues that are involved the attorney, because now we're starting actual work instead of trying to present how things can be done efficiently, legally, and responsibly. And now it is up to the committees and the groups that are working to do that. And I think there will not be as much legal staff time. But as we go on, we know there's going to be some, because at some point in time, that is what we are signed up for. We are there to be able to not spend legal dollars, but to be able to develop a policy wherein we can grow in this valley based on the constrictions that we know exist on water.
Yeah, as I mentioned, our bill, I expect for June will be less than any bill that you've had in that on that matter since it started. And so, the mayor is correct. Our expectation is there will be a significantly decreasing amount for legal to do now that we've got the PAC committee finally up and running, and hopefully we'll get the water resources manager in, and again, that will move a lot of work that was being done by attorneys off onto the right people. So at some point, that entity should be assessing fees to pay for these costs as well.
That's correct.
I'd like to just make one comment.
Is that you, Ron?
No, it's Wallace.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah,
Wallace.
yes.
Couldn't figure out where it's coming from.
When you add everything up, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. When you add everything up, Keith, because I know when you talk about this case or that case or increasing or decreasing, and it all sounds fine. But I guess overall, if you added up all of the costs that we spent, that the city spent for legal last year, versus all the expenses, no matter how you twist or turn it, for this year, unless I'm got some numbers wrong, I think we're about double what we spent last year if you add everything up. Is that a correct statement or not?
That's fairly accurate.
That's fairly accurate?
Yeah, I think it's close to half.
Okay, so all I'm saying is this. I think that no matter how we twist it and turn it, I go back to what I constantly say, which is that we need ironclad contracts. We need to have non-performance clauses everywhere we can. We need to be very aggressive in any case that where somebody doesn't perform, we can go get our money back. And I think that we need, as a general rule, to be marching in a direction of reducing our legal fees, not continuing to expand staff and so forth. I was good for the 80. I guess I was good for the 50, but I'm having a little problem with this last 50 for just the same reasons that Ms. Stevens said. And I think that we need to send a little bit of a message to the legal department. It's not just you, because you have lots of sub-attorneys and guest attorneys and visiting traveling attorneys for personnel, and God knows everything. But what I'm saying is I think that from my position as a councilman, I'd like to send a little message to the legal department that says, hey, look, we can't be raising how much our stipends are and how much this and how, I mean, everybody's taking a haircut. And I think everybody needs to include the legal department as well, and I'd vote no for this last increase. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other comment?
Just so we're clear, Mr. Martin, you understand that you've got a contract with us and we've provided legal services pursuant to that agreement. We're not asking you to approve any change in any existing agreement. We're asking you to honor the existing agreement and the work that you directed us to do.
You weren't on the speaker, so did you hear him, Wallace?
No, not at all.
All right.
Can you hear me
He's
now?
on that microphone. It doesn't hear.
Mr. Martin,
Yeah,
can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yes.
Mr. Martin, just for clarity, you're suggesting that the city is not going to pay for work that it contracted already with our office to perform, and which we have in fact performed? We're not asking, nobody's asking to change an agreement or increase or add a new legal matter. These are all matters that were approved by the city council, and we've performed the work, sir.
Yeah, but you didn't get authorization to do this very last $50,000, did you?
We absolutely did. We've got a trial, Mr. Martin, we've got a trial coming up. We have to do this work. We have to defend the city. The alternative is we would confess to judgment, I guess, in the amount of $2 million, which was not what the city council directed.
Well, okay, well, I guess my question is, why is it even being discussed if we've voted on it, approved it, and you've spent it? What's the motion here?
Because the budget is being, it's simply a matter to change the budget to reflect what was spent.
Did you hear that, Wallace?
Well, yeah, I heard it, but your comment, I guess, legally can be made, but I'm just saying my comment of concern needs also to be clearly noted, Keith.
When it comes time for you guys to consider whether you want to expand legal services, I would understand that, but you need to understand from my perspective that I expect that when we have an agreement for work, the city's going to honor that agreement.
And we did approve that in closed session.
Peggy, I understand and I agree. I'm just saying that moving forward, I want it to be stated that I want to start moving backwards on legal fees, not increasing them constantly. That's all.
Thank you. Is there any other comment from the council? Mr. Porter?
Thank you. Well, first off, I'd like to see a little more accounting of how we spend attorney fees. But this goes back to my problem that I've had with the closed session and the Brown Act informing the public as required. Well, I understand when the attorney talks about attorney-client privilege. I understand when he talks about settlement. I understand when he talks about work product. But when a case has actually been filed, the claim that's made should be put in the Brown in the agenda that this is what it is, this is what the claim was. Someone's suing the city because it stubbed his toe on the sidewalk, it doesn't matter what. The city council approved to go ahead and challenge this litigation, they approved to go into settlement talks, whatever. That's things the public needs to know on how their money's being spent. And when you get these little bitty pieces where I have to guess, in fact, it's not even a good guess, we need to know this. If I understand when you have possible litigation and you don't want to disrupt your case. I don't understand why the attorney isn't going to give his defense on how he's going to defend the city. That's work product and that's part of his job. But simply knowing what was filed in court and putting it out for the public to know is what the Brown Act is all about. It's like this he needs this for this litigation. I don't know what the litigation's about, but he can talk about what's filed. And that's what the public should be made aware of. I'd like to see a little more information when we're doing legal services in the future. In fact, I'd like to see an accounting on how all the dollars for the legal were spent last year, so the people would be quite aware of how they are spent.
It's in the agenda packet.
It's on the budget, and it was there the last few
It gives you
meetings.
a breakdown in the agenda packet of by case where the dollars are spent.
Yes, but it needs more information. A number doesn't mean anything. Thank you.
It wasn't a number, it was a whole listing.
Yes, but I mean, it just says case between Joe Jones and the city. That doesn't mean it needs to know what the claim is and what we paid on it. It needs to cover more. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Neal?
Just an idea that actually has been discussed briefly between myself and a few other persons, and this might highlight the possibility of considering this, and that is that the city have its own staff city attorney. Might be pretty easy to look back at Lemieux's and whoever else's charges were over the last number of years, and then look at what it would cost you to have your own staff attorney, and decide if we couldn't get our own, basically kind of do our own, have an attorney that's here 8 hours a day, normal work hours. He's dedicated to doing nothing but our business. Number one would be a big advantage, and it might be less costly.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other council comment?
I'd just like to comment on that. When I first got on the council years ago, we had our own city attorney, and he was not knowledgeable in enough items, but we still had to contract out with other attorneys when we had certain cases. So it was nice to have a local guy, but let's face it, when you're strictly in Ridgecrest, you don't have the experience that we need sometimes on these cases. So it wasn't working out for the city.
Okay, is there any other comments on this item? Is there a motion then?
I move approval of 6. I move approval of 6.
Second.
Aye.
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 Wallace, did you hear that?
No, I didn't. I said I agree.
Okay, so the next item we're going to is number 8.
Yes, I just want to put before the public one cogent bit of information out of this study, and that would be, what does the study state that is the total amount of money we probably are going to need to spend fixing our streets in Ridgecrest? I quoted a number last council meeting, I believe, and was told that was low, and it was like $80 million. What does the study say?
The study has it broken down between major maintenance of arterial and secondary streets, and then also for local streets. And according to estimates, we have for major maintenance on arterial streets and secondary streets is $17,470,000. For local streets, it's $18,600,000.
So why was I told 80 million was low? This doesn't sound close to 80 million. There's something we're not addressing.
I'm
here.
just taking this directly out of the study, sir.
Maybe because the total replacement cost it says is $144 million. Maybe that's.
Okay.
Well, that would be if you took every street and you replaced. That's kind
All
of
the
like
streets,
the
yeah.
total street system of
Right.
125.9 miles, and you were to replace those streets. What would it cost you to go through and replace every single street? And that's $144,900,000.
The numbers you're giving me are to get the average PCI index up to what was it, 40 or 50?
Well, the recommendation for a PCI of, I believe, 65 was is where we were, what the pavement management study recommended. and that was with a budgetary amount of $5 million for the first 3 years, and then $2.25 million for the remaining 15 years to ultimately obtain a PCI of around 65.
Okay. So we're easily, just to get the PCI that you're talking about, we're easily talking about about $40 million roughly. That may be a slight overestimate. So I just wanted to bring that before the public, because we're going to have more discussions about how to use TAB funds, of which we've only used $11 million working on streets around this town. So that needs to be kept in the forefront when we have that discussion. Thank you.
Okay, we asked this item, so what questions did we want to talk to Mr. Culp about?
Mike's the one that pulled it, so.
Yeah.
Oh,
I do want to point out, because Dennis, can you tell us what the PCI was before on the last study?
On the last study, the PCI was about 23, I think, citywide.
Yeah, and in this report, it says our PCI average is 54.9. So I did want to point out to say thank you to our group for, I mean, that's a pretty significant increase in our improvement. So thank you very much for your work on that.
thank you. Is there any other comment then? Any other public comment? Motion?
I move approval of 8.
Second.
Aye.
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 Mr. Martin?
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Thank you. Next item is number 9. And I know Mr. Parson is here to address that. It is proposed action to approve a resolution to approve fiscal year 17-18 rate increase for solid waste services. Mr. Parsons.
Also, you have a call-in on this item. Debbie Morris from HFH is on the line.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council. This item is, the background on this item is in 2011, the city issued a competitive request for proposals for collection services and entered into a new agreement with Waste Management effective January 1 of 2012. The agreement provided for the following: that no changes in initial rates were proposed through January of 12 through June of 13. The first rate adjustment was made in July of 13 through June of 14. That's the normal cycle. The second one was done again July of 14 through June of 15. The third one was made effective 15 through 16. We're now in the fourth rate adjustment the fourth rates adjustment resulted in when we did the calculations per the agreement, a requirement for showed an actual decrease was indicated in the rates from July 1 through 16 through June 30th of 17. However, we did not make such an adjustment to what we call the OCF. The decrease in the OCF of 1.4 has been then applied in our proposal in this staff report to the 17-18 year adjustment that turned out. The current requested rate adjustment, if any, is due, was effective July. Will be effective July of 17 through June 18th. What we're suggesting is that on March 31st of 17, Waste Management submitted a request for an adjustment in the customer rates, our citizen rates. The rate adjustment was then reviewed by our consultants, HF&H. Our consultant determined that the rates were calculated in accordance with the procedures in section 11.2 of the Exhibit B of the agreement between the city and Waste Management dated September 7th of 11. Based on the review, the FY 17 and 18 rate adjustment increase of 0.86% operating component factor and 0.7 a one-time increase in the minimum wage and health care and 0.16 we determined would offset that increase, would offset a portion of the 1.4 deferment that was occurred in 16-17 on the rate, so resulting in no adjustment to the 17-18 solid waste rates. The remaining 16-17 decrease of 0.54 would be used, if possible, in the future offset, if there is one, or an increase in it. The key, we submitted, you have included the original letter in your package, the original letter from a resolution, obviously indicating that, the original letter from Waste Management requesting the increase and identifying the contract change, and the review of the Waste Management letter that we received concerning this item. Subsequently, and we do have Ms. Debbie Morris from HF&H if can answer questions relative to the evaluation of the increase and the process and the contract for doing so, and the request that Waste Management had in terms of that. Subsequently, Monday of this week, I believe, our city manager received, Monday midday, received a letter from Waste Management Legal Counsel indicating that, and essentially summarizing, and I do believe we have representatives from Waste Management that can perhaps clarify and perhaps give you a better picture of the letter that was voiced. But basically the gist of the letter was that it wasn't allowed under the agreement that we could carry forward the fact that we did not decrease the rates in that previous year, because it indicated that, and that we could not roll that decrease into this year's increase to offset it. In other words, they believe that each agreeer stands alone. However, it is the belief of staff and our consultant that that interpretation is incorrect. However, we've asked our legal counsel, Mr. Lemieux's office, to review this item and get back to us. And unless Mr. Lemieux has done that and is able to do that,
no,
we have not heard from his office yet. So we're at a somewhat we can't really advise you what our legal counsel's advice is.
Let me jump in here real quick. I was on vacation last week, apparently when our consultant was reaching out and trying to get a hold of me on this. So I haven't had a chance to look at it. I haven't looked at it at all. I was just talking with representatives for Waste Management. I think in light of that, there is an issue of whether or not we have to act tonight. But we can toll that time limit by agreement. So in light of the fact that I haven't had a chance to look at this argument at all and provide you with an opinion, I just asked the representative for Waste Management if they would agree to hold off on this item until the next meeting, with the understanding that any action taken by the board would relate back to tonight. And they've told me that they believe that we can agree to that, and therefore I would recommend that we just table this one for tonight until we've had a chance to look at it and come back with an opinion.
The agreement, as I understand it, would be, if we follow the terms of the agreement, would actually make, if we didn't take action tonight, would be retroactive to July 1. So if we waited until the next council meeting, any increase, if one was approved, would become retroactive back to July 1. So the council understands that. But that would be, because our next meeting is July 19th, so it would be a 18-day change retroactively back if we choose that, unless, of course, the Waste Management agreed to not have that happen and have the action. Right?
Well, I'm sure they would prefer the former. But in any case, we can do that by agreement. And again, I'm not prepared to give you a substantive analysis of the arguments right now, and I would be unwise for me to do that.
Okay, given that information, then the suggestion is to pull the item. Is there any objections to pulling that item until next agenda? Okay.
I'd still like to speak on it.
All right.
Well, the board's not taking any actions.
We are not.
Doesn't matter. It's on the agenda. I have right to speak because of the
We didn't.
That's incorrect. The board has the right, the public has a right to speak on any item prior to the board taking action on that item.
Then they can't take action until I'm allowed to speak.
Yeah, which will be at the next meeting, sir.
No, I have a right to speak right now, and you don't know the No Brown Act. So basically, what I wanted to bring up has nothing to do with what
I'm
they're
sorry,
taking
wait
off.
a minute, Mr. Porter, wait 1 minute, please. Please let us be able to talk among ourselves for 1 moment before you do. Is there any problem if he is allowed to speak, or we just simply, out of consideration, saying, no, we aren't going to allow him to speak because the item isn't on the agenda? Is going to be pulled from the agenda?
If you want him to speak, you can allow him to speak. He doesn't have a right to speak.
Is there any objection to allowing Mr. Porter to speak? Please, Mr. Porter, speak.
Thank you. Briefly, all I wanted to say is there was one thing in this agreement that I saw problematic, and that was they were going to charge stuff for waste, and it identified that this was a mandate that the state's been putting forth and that they're not willing to pay for. We need to start addressing those issues. When the state puts out a mandate, they're mandated under the California Constitution to pay for it.
Who is they, please?
The state.
Thank you.
The state, under the California Constitution, if they put forth an unfunded mandate, you don't have to do it. The California Supreme Court said, if they are not willing to pay for it, you don't have to do it, and you're not in violation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so the item is that we will table this item until next agenda on the 19th of July. Thank you, HF&H, thank you, Waste Management, and thank you to all who came to speak. We will have that item on the next agenda. Okay, then we will go to item number 10, proposed action to approve a contract for an interim city manager. Mr. Lemieux.
Sure. This involves a decision, a staffing decision made by the current city manager to, in order to turn his attention more fully to public works matters, has made a recommendation for the city council's consideration that he step back to manage the public works department full time, with the understanding that the city council would appoint an interim city manager. As I'm sure you and the public recalls, the current, Mr. Spears, the current city manager, has indicated his intent to retire at the end of this year or the beginning of next year, and that because of that, the city has begun a recruitment process. Well, I guess it's clearer to say begun the process of selecting recruiters, or and to fill that spot. And so it's understood that the city needs someone to fill the city manager position on an interim basis. Mr. Strand has agreed to do so. He has indicated that he has made preparations so that the police department will be managed in his absence, and that he'll be a full-time city administrator during the duration that he is the interim. I also need to point out that so that's the contract that's currently before you. I need to point out that the Brown Act has changed on the subject of approving these types of contracts, that there was a law put into place recently that has just gone into effect that requires that we orally comment and provide information to the public on the compensation to be paid for the executive position. So the contract would be for an annual salary amount of $158,000. Do I have that correct? And however, this contract is not for a full year. It is expected this contract would last until the permanent the permanent city manager is appointed, and that we expect will be before the end of the year. So therefore, it will not be $158,000 paid on the contract. It will be whatever that is, prorated for the amounts worked. In addition to that, Mr. Strand would be receiving the other benefits that are the standard benefit package for management employees. So the recommendation is to approve the agreement. I should also add that it's an at-will agreement, meaning it can be terminated without cause on 30 days' notice, I think we have in the agreement. There is also a provision that in the event that the agreement ends, it is understood that Mr. Strand has the option to move back to the chief of police position at that time. And I think I've summarized the terms. We had a little, because we had to work out the terms with the chief, we didn't get this on the agenda originally when it was posted, but we had a need to take action because it's effective at the beginning of July. So I believe that was distributed, the actual contract was distributed in a supplemental agenda.
That's correct.
So you should have that in front of you, and the public should have that in front of them. So unless you have any questions, that concludes the report.
Okay, is there any comments from council? Stevens?
I had a quick one. I didn't know if we were still starting July 1st or if we were changing that date because of vacation and bumping it up.
It's effective July 1st, but as I recall, Chief Strand is actually taking vacation the week of first week of July. So I'll be here, but officially I won't be city manager, but he may appoint whoever he wants to be city manager during that week.
That's what he had told us when we talked. Is there any other council comments? Is there any other public comment? Okay, motion?
I move approval.
Second.
Mr. Mauer?
Aye.
Mr. Thomas?
Aye.
Mayor Breeden?
Aye.
Ms. Stevens?
Aye.
Mr. Martin? Mr. Martin? 5 ayes, motion carries.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Wallace. We got it. We heard you. Thank you. Proposed action to approve a resolution to establish and identify the scope and purpose of the Finance Committee. Mr. Lemieux.
So I guess as the City Council is very much aware, at prior meetings, the City Council has asked for a mechanism to be involved in the budget preparation process at an early stage while the draft budgets are being considered. The resolution that you see in front of you is sort of a refinement on a previous ad hoc committee that was set up, I guess, just for this year. It ends that ad hoc committee and establishes a standing committee under the municipal code that will continue. And the purpose of the committee is to review the budget during the budget approval process every year. So at least there's one committee meeting at least prior to the budget coming up in front of the City Council. It's not intended, just to make it clear, it's not intended to otherwise change the obligation or the responsibilities to prepare the budget. Those are still the responsibilities of staff as provided in the municipal code. This is just an opportunity, as we did this year, it's an opportunity to have this additional committee meeting so that the City Council can be apprised of budget issues at an early stage.
It does not limit it to one meeting, though. Because I know it was discussed in the Finance Committee that they may meet, but they must have at least one meeting. Was that my understanding of what was said?
You're asking me what was said at the
Well,
committee, or what?
All right. What is intended in this?
I don't think this intends to place
limit.
a limitation on one meeting.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought. Is there any comment for that from council?
No, not from me.
Any comment from the public? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Sir?
Stan Rotora. On section 3, it begins with a statement, when requested by the City Council, the Finance Committee shall review. I guess I don't understand the need for having a phrase that says, when requested by the City Council. Is there some reason to believe that the City Council would not want the Finance Committee to do this?
I felt like I didn't have input to the exact wording, but when I read it, I thought it gave even more jurisdiction and more enforcement that this is direction from the city council to do so.
Well, I guess another kind of question I had was, now a lot of the responsibilities of various committees are actually ordinance rather than resolution. And I guess I don't understand why we're dealing with a resolution here rather than an ordinance. Was there a reason for making this a resolution rather than an ordinance?
Well, in a resolution, it doesn't have to be an ordinance in this particular case, and a resolution is just simply easier to adopt or amend. So I think it's preferable from that standpoint. If we need to make a change, we don't have to go through two separate meetings and have it be delayed its application based on the ordinance process. As far as your first question is concerned, once this is in place, it's meant to go on forever. So we don't know what future city councils may or may not want to do regarding the budget. This is sort of creating a mechanism so you guys have this option should you choose to exercise it. But maybe in the future people are happy with doing it kind of the traditional way. I don't know.
I guess I would be happier to see it being an ordinance, and I would be even happier to have the phrase "when requested by the city council" removed, because my feeling is with the issues that we've had over the last few years, it's important that we have an active and a vibrant finance committee that does their job and does the job well. I see no need for when requested by the city council in there. The other comment on Part B of the same section, it says start with the Ridgecrest Municipal Code to the members of the committee, and I would like to see that rather than just the budget be just given to the finance committee, it be stated that the finance committee and the public with sufficient time for them to individually prepare for the committee meeting. I think it's important that we get the public involved in not just the budgetary and finance portion of the city, but the entire city. The public, I think, would respond much better if it was demonstrated that their input was desired. And in my point of view, I think the public's input is a necessity, if you'll pardon my saying so.
Because the minutes go out to, because the agendas and all pertinent material go out to the public and the committee at the same time, do you think that eliminates the public input?
Actually, I understand that is the way things are done, but this does not reflect what the procedures that are currently done. If indeed this reflected the procedures as they are currently implemented, I'd be perfectly happy. But they do not reflect the procedures as it is done now.
The Brown Act requires that staff reports for the meeting that are distributed to the city council be made available to the public at the same time they're distributed to the city council. So they'll get them at the same time the city council will. I guess what you're suggesting is that the public get them even sooner than the city council? Is there any reason?
Same time as the committee.
Yeah, that's
not the same time as the council.
Well, the committee, that's right. That's already required by the Brown Act.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask one question, Mr. Lamute?
Sure.
For education, is there more bite versus one, the resolution versus the ordinance? Can you give me a little education on what's the strongest?
No, they're both just as effective and binding. The only difference is that the ordinance requires 2 readings, as I'm sure you're aware from when we do that. So in other words, it's just sort of a longer, more, expensive process to revise. Also, if you want things to be part of the municipal code, then you have to do it by ordinance.
Okay.
Keith, would you have any problem with removing those 5 words when requested by the 6 words when requested by the city council?
It's not for me to say, as that would be a matter of policy. It doesn't. You're certainly able to do that. Just bear in mind that you're at that point sort of maybe forcing a future city council to do something they don't feel is necessary.
But a future city council could eliminate the finance committee.
Absolutely.
So we're not really binding them to anything.
Well, until it's revised, I guess.
Until it's revised, yes. But they could revise it or change it any time. I think we have been requested by the city council to do this. That's why we
voted on it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it should be as requested by the city council.
I would go with yes. I like yes.
Instead of when.
Is that okay?
I think when you say it that way, as requested, it sort of begs the question when, and you're kind of then referring to comments or matters that are extraneous to the document. I would either cut that out or just leave it as is. If you want to cut it out, again, that's just a policy question for you guys.
Do all the other committees have that same direction? That it must be from the
No,
direction?
I think the standing committees just are presumed to meet.
Yeah, I think this is
And
a little different.
this committee cannot say we're going to meet each month. They can choose to meet only before or whenever they choose. That's the difference then between this committee and all the other committees that meet on a specifically scheduled.
Yeah, I think the contemplation here is that this is not a year-round committee, that this is a committee that will occur annually as part of the budget.
No, this is a year-round.
We're a year-round
committee.
I'm sorry, I'm talking about the budget review part.
But
It's not a
that's
year-round.
part of the finance committee.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Right? We're saying that this would be brought to the
Right.
finance committee that we sit on, not a new committee.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So let's just say as rather than.
Well, he's saying instead of saying as, just strike the whole
thing
sentence.
out.
Just
back to your
I
recommendation.
think it would be clear if that's the intent to just simply eliminate the phrase as suggested by Mr. Ritora.
Does that mean if something were to happen and we couldn't meet, the finance committee couldn't meet, would it hold anything up?
Well, arguably, it might hold up the budget process at that point.
But that would be under any circumstances, no matter what the wording was.
Well, no, because you could say if you turns out you couldn't meet, then it wouldn't have been requested by the city council, I suppose.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know. You want to remove it? I'm okay either way. I don't
care either. We know we're going to meet monthly.
Yeah.
Unless.
Isn't it like the rest of the committees?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
But does that mean like ahead of the budget, we have to put an item on our agenda saying we want this to be reviewed by the finance committee every year? Is that what that's saying?
You know, it seems to me that as a practical matter, that bringing this to the finance committee will become a routine matter because of this section, and you know, we're really talking about a fringe corner case on this, but again, you guys can do it how you want.
Okay.
I make a motion, we approve it as it is.
I second.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas.
Aye.
Mayor Breeden.
Aye.
Ms. Stevens.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay. The next item. Number 12. Report on potential action for tab allocation bond tab, permitted uses, and current funding allocations. Mr. Parsons.
Madam Mayor and Council, this is an item that was carried forward from last council meeting. The purpose of the carried forward was to determine determine how to reallocate money from existing unutilized TAB funds into projects. The other reason we was carried forward was to gather information from the Parks Department Engineering in order to give you specific information relative to particular expenditures. I have provided the group with, again, with the letter from the attorney, our counsel, legal counsel, as to the issues associated with the use of TAB funds and their allocation relative to the requirements of the IRS on the tax-exempt bond status. I also included for you a breakdown of the TAB allocations and bond proceeds projected, projects allocations that currently exist. And then what I did as well that was different than last time is on the bottom of that page, I indicated the unallocated TAB funds. I did a little math for you, and we have $172,935 left in economic development that was originally allocated in economic development, $53,115 in public works, $927 that came out of special projects, totaling $1.137 million and $75, which is the amount that are not currently allocated of TAB funds. So with that, I think it's a matter of discussion of the council and as to how you would like to allocate those monies in terms of projects or uses by the council. And with that, Mayor, I turn it over to you, the council.
I would like to ask a question. Of the up to $750,000 that was approved for the splash pad work, in the discussion that we had last time, it was brought up that Penny Pool should be part of this. And Mr. Maurer made a comment, and I felt strongly the same way that Mr. Maurer had made. Had he known, let me tell me if I'm wrong, if I'm quoting you incorrectly. Had you known that Penny Pool was going to come back up, you would not or may not have voted in favor of the up to $750,000 for the splash pad.
Yeah, my feeling is if I had known we were going to proceed with the pool,
right,
I'd rather spend the money on the pool than a splash pad.
I would agree the same way.
Because I think more people would get benefit from the pool. However, I don't think we have anybody that's going to fix the pool. Is it?
Well, that's my question, because I feel like, I'm not going to say I was blindsided, but I don't feel like I was given all the information to be able to make an accurate decision of the $750,000. If we had, because originally it was $1.9 million to fix Penny Pool and bring it up to standards so it could be opened and utilized, then and so that was already in my mind, perhaps incorrectly, off the table because there weren't dollars for that. There were dollars for the splash pad and the improvements that you had talked about, Councilwoman Stevens, but I'm concerned that had we known that other discussion was going on at the time, we could have made a more informed decision on how to proceed. That if indeed it wasn't $1.9 million, and if indeed we had enough money in TAB funds to go ahead and bring it up, as the Board of Realtors had said, so you only fix it for 5 years. At least you've got 5 years until the Aqua project that is being considered by another group that will more than adequately take care of that. I don't know what the answer is. I just felt like I wasn't given all the information. Had I known that was going on, I might have made a decision differently than I did. And I wish, if indeed a committee is looking at something else, they gave us that information ahead of time so we knew what you're doing without seeing the discussion that's going on. It would have been good for all of us to know that. Not pointed criticism, just a suggestion. So help me understand where we are with this. please.
With Penny Pool?
Yes.
With Penny Pool, we currently do not have a contractor who has given us a full price on fixing everything that needs to be fixed at the pool. We thought we were possibly going to have some information, but the gentleman who we were getting numbers from did not know that prevailing wage was part of our requirement, and so we don't have anyone available at this time that would meet this tab deadline. We thought at the last meeting we might possibly have that capability, but I think, Mr. Patton, do you want to?
So, yeah, a couple things. First, though, since the Penny Pool closed, we've never stopped trying to find a solution for the pool. It's just that we haven't been able to find one.
Is it just money, or what is the solution? Other than bringing up to current ADA standards, are all the pipes and everything in there in this 40-some-odd-year-old pool, are they adequate? If we brought it up to ADA standards, could it be utilized?
I do have a number for the pool itself, just the pool to rehab the entire pool, and it's looking like it's about almost $1 million, just the pool. No ADA compliance, no building issues. No, we don't have a number on those.
That's resurfacing the pool.
It's fixing all of the issues that the pool has, just the swimming pool. So it's about $950,000 is what we're looking at. As far as the rest of it, we don't have a number for that. We have a couple of contractors that are looking at the facility for the ADA compliance stuff, but they've not given us the numbers back yet. And I just got the numbers back from the pool this afternoon. So,
how hard have you been looking for the people to give you numbers, Mr. Patton?
How hard? I've contacted people, contractors. Mr. Culp contracted engineers to look at the pool for us. Randy Brown, the maintenance supervisor, has contacted several people. The issue with the local people is they don't have the capability to tackle a project of this size. The guy that the company, Vacation Pools, that we did get the numbers from, said he'd bring an entire crew of about 30 people out here for 3 months to do the project. So local people don't really have that capability.
Is this majorly the concrete work?
Correct, yeah.
And so an estimated cost of concrete work is about $950,000.
By the time they do the concrete work and resurface the pool, yeah. It's basically a redo.
How many ADA compliant problems do we have that haven't been fixed yet?
That's unidentified. We have to get the county to come and do as we did with the senior center project. The county would come out and do an assessment, tell us everything we would have to fix to be in complete compliance. So without dollars, and that changes. So without dollars, we haven't gone down that road yet, but we have local contractors that are looking to help us with that and donate some time and materials for that. But when you're asking people to donate, you're on their time, not your time. So that's kind of where we are. So we know for a good starting point, we're at about $1 million going up from there.
Just out of curiosity, where are we on the splash pad?
The splash pad, we have an agreement in place that the attorneys are reviewing right now.
So it's a committed project.
Upon the review of the attorneys, we would, be obligated to sign it, since it's an approved, funded project. Yeah.
We haven't signed any agreements,
No.
yeah, just for clarity, we have not yet executed any agreements, and the form of the agreements is still being decided. There was a resolution passed directing us to do so, and we think the resolution has validly committed us to getting those authorized.
Right. Mr. Lemieux's office is reviewing the final contract.
Well, it seems to me that we're pretty much just where we were before, that the splash pad is a go and the penny pool is not. We were trying to get a few additional numbers, and that didn't come out. So am I correct in saying that we're proceeding with the splash pad and the penny pool is out of the question for now? Is that correct?
I mean, that's what's on the table now, correct?
Okay, so then let's proceed with the next thing.
What did you say, Wallace, the last sentence?
I guess we just proceed with the next thing, because we've already discussed that. The penny pool, there was no additional information on it. So I'm just suggesting we move on to whatever else we're proposing.
Well, we're proposing a number of different items in there, and what I was trying to make a determination is if we have 1.1 of unallocated funds, tab funds, and we can repair penny pool with that, and that's what I asked the last time, why do we have to just say it all goes to one item? Cannot we allocate $5 here, $10 here, and $50 here? And that was my concern, that we were trying to limit how much we can do by saying it's all goes to one item. And I don't think we are doing that now. Is that correct?
I'm confused because last time we talked about possibly, okay, so you're concerned with it all going to one group, because I thought we had talked about, a portion going to Downs, a portion going to Senior Center,
right,
possibly. And so I didn't think we were talking about all of it going to one place.
I didn't either. That's why I said, why can't we fix a number of problems
right
with this opportunity rather than saying it's all going to one?
Right. And what it sounds like.
I agree.
Yeah. So.
I wanted Madam Mayor and Mr. Mowers to know that our committee did look at this, and we were looking very hard to find some numbers to bring back to you. And through the process of time, we knew we were at that deadline of time, and we were not, and especially Mr. Patton was not getting numbers back from people that needed to give him numbers, and he was searching hard, and Mr. Cope was searching hard. So it wasn't like we just said, here we go, we're going to just do this. But we were looking.
I know your intent. I know your intent was not to deceive us. Okay. My concern was, had we known, we might have been able to make a better informed decision that you were looking at this project too. And that way we could have determined where we're going. But it's over and done. I understand. We've discussed it. So we don't need to be on it anymore. I understand what you were doing. But at the time, both Mr. Maurer and I, because we were not on that committee, did not know that you were considering penny pool. But like I say, it's done. So let's go on to what we can fix with the money we have.
Okay.
Okay. So what is the desire of the council?
Well, I had, if you would, I guess, indulge me, I had an idea that I had come across, and I know I've sent out some information on it, and I have prepared a very brief few slide PowerPoint of an idea for us that I think would help out with infrastructure. Is that okay?
Sure.
With you?
Go ahead.
Gary, can you? Okay. So a few months ago in infrastructure, when we were presented the pavement management study and the overwhelming number and how we were so far off from achieving a desired outcome, I sat there and thought to myself, I think I even said it out loud, there has to be a better way of doing this. And if we did it ourselves, would it be cheaper? So I started looking into that and found online that a city had purchased their own slurry seal and microsurfacing machine. And so just briefly, I don't know if this is working.
Right on.
There we go. Okay. So briefly, slurry seal is basically the system we've been using currently. I don't know. Do you guys know what slurry seal is, all of you? Or do you want me to give you kind of a quick summary of what it is? It's just basically a top coat, because the idea of rebuilding roads is so expensive and out of our price range that many cities have moved to this program of doing the slurry seal top coat. It gives a uniform black color and texture, and it enhances the appearance and the drivability. Microsurfacing is a little bit beefier option that you can do on the roadways, and you can do a couple layers on it too. So basically, what you need is these two machines. You need this road saver machine, and then you would need a tanker to hold. There's an aggregate and an emollient, and so the tanker's for the emollient, and then the truck mixes the two and applies it to the surface. So through this, I contacted first Modesto, because I saw that they had recently purchased the machine within the last 2 years. And so I wanted to hear from them, was this the first time you ever bought one of these machines? Is this a new program you're doing? And it is, in fact, a brand new program that they just started in May of last year. They had initially set out to do 40 lane miles in their first year, and they ended up doing 76. So almost double. And they only spent $585,000 doing that. The gentleman I spoke to said that this was the best decision that they've ever made for their streets program. He said that they are now averaging 13 to 15 cents a square foot with material, labor, and equipment, versus when they were hiring contractors, they were paying 30 to 45 cents a square foot. This year they have a material account of $700,000 to do what they have set out to do. The company that they purchased the truck from, they brought the crew down for several weeks to train with their streets crew. So it wasn't just like you bought the machine and you're on your own. They actually come down and work with your guys, make sure that they're comfortable with it, and they do it first on the slurry seal, and then they'll come back later for the micro surfacing, because the microsurfacing sets up a little faster. So they want to make sure you have a good handle on the slurry seal first. You see, I just literally copied and pasted from his email. And so he said this year they've started in May, and they've already completed 35 lane miles. After he suggested I contact the company that they sold the machine from, the company also told me about another city that had recently started, which is Bullhead City, Arizona. And Bullhead City's plan that they set out to do is to do 20% of their roads every year, so that every 5 years all of their roads would be resurfaced. It shows a breakdown. They do theirs in square yards, so you can see, and I converted it for ease, so we're comparing apples and apples. They're averaging about 12 cents a square foot, which includes the labor and the materials and the equipment. They started placing the material last October and have applied about 7 million square foot of the slurry and microsurfacing. They are placing between 90,000 and 360,000 square feet per day, and this is using one truck. And this is the street crew that they use. They use a driver, an operator, 2 squeegee men, and then 2 guys for traffic control who also cover the manhole covers, and then also a guy who is a street operator and blows cracks with the compressor before they put the sealer down. And as you can see, some of those he specified were part-time, which he meant temporary employees. So what I did is I asked our staff for our specs on our roadways, and found out that we have 25 million square feet of roadway. And so I just took 20% of 25 million, which is about 5 million. And then I applied that to the range of, I did 15 to 18 cents because we were averaging paying between 43 and 50 cents which is higher than what Modesto was paying because of our remote location. Dennis and I spoke about thinking we thought a little higher range would be better, more realistic, I guess. And so I came up with $750,000 to $900,000 a year. So if you look, this top white box shows last year we did 2.3 million square feet for $900,000. So this would essentially allow us to do double the amount of square footage for essentially the same price. Obviously, we would need to add some workers to our force because I think we currently only have five. So we would need to add a couple more employees. It seems like what would be suggested would be 2 full-time and then 2 part-time seasonal. And from Ty, he said that those positions average out to be $60,000 with benefits. So I multiplied that by 3 because 2 and 2 part-time equal 3. This is part of that labor cost, though, is included up in the $900,000 number, but I just wanted to split it out to show that I knew that we would need more people. My idea is that the labor and materials would be funded from Measure V, and then you would still have a significant portion of your money left over for the major construction because there are some roads identified in the pavement management study that do need to be reconstructed. But basically, I just thought this would be a good way to go directly to a capital expense and help solve part of our roadway problem that we face. So I don't know if there's any questions that you guys have on that. And I know it's kind of throwing a new thing at you, and I apologize, but it's just kind of come about here recently.
Well, in reviewing this memo that we got tonight, maybe some of you got it earlier, but I didn't. On the comments by staff and then comments by contractor in red, is this something that Dennis, you did, or something Lauren did?
So the copy you have in front of you, the comments that are red are actually from the Rainier guy. So it got too confusing because
Well, the original email I had sent out had the contractor in red and staff in black, yes.
Yeah. And so then when the new person put all the comments from staff and contractors went to black, and then the equipment manufacturer's comments are now red. So in your email inbox, you would have the original, I guess. Sorry to confuse you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
When you say contractor, Mr. Spear, who are you making reference to, sir?
These are the contractors that have performed in the past. We've been using we haven't really done any slurry seals. Typically, we've only used type 2, type 3, and even type 4 on occasion. And it's been microsurfacing. It's either been cape seal or it's been micropaving. And those are comments that are in red from the contractor that's done a good deal of our work here in town. And that's as far as the comments in red. And then the other comments are from our public works staff, including and most significantly our street maintenance supervisor.
The contractor wouldn't be someone that has done work for us that
yes,
possibly be taking
the majority of the work
that's been
the majority of the work that's been done.
Okay, so this could be someone that might not like if I'm doing the work, done the work.
Well, that's true, but you have to understand. I believe in the email I sent out, I made it clear that sort of the theme of the comments was the fact that you're not looking at a piece of machinery, you're looking at a process. And the reason that's important, and I think that our street maintenance supervisor made the case that when our crews do the preparation for the streets before the contractor comes out to do the microsurfacing, whether it's micropave or whether it's a cape seal or whether it's what they call that, whether it's actually uses a fiberglass filler, and what they do is we prepare the streets and they come out And the way it works is they use 3 trucks, similar to what is being presented tonight. And the reason they use 3 trucks is it takes almost an hour to fill a truck. And so it takes only 20 minutes for them to unload that into the spreader box and go down the street. So when the one truck has unloaded his material, they have a second truck ready to hook up, connect, and continue the process. And then a third truck is there to relieve that truck. First truck comes back online, and second, and the same, and so and so. So it's a continuous operation. With one truck, you'd pour maybe 100 yards, for 20 minutes. All the load would be expelled, and then you'd have to go back to the yard to fill that truck up again. It would take you at least 40 minutes to fill the truck up. From what it's not just the emulsion. You have the emulsion, you have the aggregate, you have the cement, and you even have the if you're going to use fillers, as far as the fibers, you have that as well.
So if you see in the comments and if you see from Bullhead, they talk about how many square foot per day they are laying, and the contractor is trying to get the job done as fast as possible so that he can move on to the next city to then make money, where we're just taking care of ourselves. We don't have to move on to another city. We're just here maintaining our own square footage that we have, if that makes sense. And that's included in the comments. So he said that the Bullhead City, they're running on average 4 to 5 loads per day of the slurry seal. So, which then if you see in here, he said that's equivalent to 90,000 to 360,000 square feet per day.
If he's doing 4 to 5 loads a day, how could it be that much of a variance between 90 and 3? That's between 1 and 4 times as much. I mean,
I think it probably depends on the complexity of the area that they're doing, but
this sounds good in theory. But I know there's a lot more involved in this than just hiring a truck. And I'm a little confused at going through and looking at the black and the red because they're somewhat conflicting, and some of the reds calling the black liars, basically.
Well, that's why I said you need to look at the original version in your email that Dennis provided, and then I don't know if he had
Who
copies.
provided the red and black? I thought that was what Dennis provided.
The first email was red and black from me, but later this afternoon, apparently the people that were contacted by Council Member Stevens, they responded to the earlier email.
So, because I don't think it's a fair assessment to go out and ask the contractor that you're currently paying to do the work if he thinks you should buy your own machine.
Well, I understand that, but I guess I'd like to hear from Mr. Culp on his views on this. Wallace is always complaining about we getting stuff at the last minute, and getting something on Wednesday afternoon is a little late in my opinion. I mean, I worked outside all day today doing a sewer line, and by the time I got home, I had to rest, take a shower, and get down to this meeting, so I didn't look at emails this afternoon.
Right. We got the original email this morning with the comments from Les and the contractor. So,
well, Councilman, I tend to take a conservative approach towards major purchases, in that I like to look at what information has been presented, and then weigh that information. And if I find that there's some contradictory elements or some elements that I'm uncertain of, I try to flesh those out as best I can to make an informed decision, to make a good economic decision. I feel that although as a engineer and a public works guy, I sure like the idea of equipment, but I think there is the question of efficiency involved here and a process. And I would say that if it were me, I would study this further to look at that efficiency element and find out what that might mean in terms of and then try to come up with a more informed and decision or information which I could make a good economic decision upon.
And along with that, in terms of additional information, last Thursday I attended an ASCE meeting, and a fellow I hadn't seen in years, but I've known him for many years, 30 at least, Ted Meridian. He sat next to me, and he handed me his card because he changed. I asked him where he was now, and he's the district materials engineer for Caltrans District 6, and they pave hundreds of miles of hundreds of miles of microsurfacing every year now. So I knew that, so I said, well, Ted, I may maybe get back to you because we are contemplating whether we want to purchase a machine. And I said, well, and would you be able to give me any information, as far as, what you've done in the way of equipment and manpower? He told me that they did an economic analysis, and they actually have no machines and no staff. They contract all their work for their microsurfacing. So I sent him an email on Monday, and I said, just to follow up, could you provide me any information or data that you may have had that as far as how you studied it to arrive at that decision? And I hadn't received that as of this meeting.
Excuse me. My name is Sandra Tatum, and I do apologize to everyone sitting up there, the mayor, Mr. Spears. Mr. Spears, I apologize to every single one of you. My first name is Sandra. My last name is Tatum. I suffer from cancer. I spent the last 32 days in an infested home to the point that I can't get one single person to listen to me. The environmental health, I believe her name is Miss Williams, gave me a call and asked me to contact Mr. Spears. I've been struggling real hard with quite a few people in City Hall just to get to one person to say, hey, help. These are bed bugs. They're outside. It's ridiculous. And nobody wants to listen or help. So I'm addressing this issue. I wanted him, since I was told that they're beetles. He's right. The carpet is beetle now. Here. This is the results. My face, my head. My hair is down to here. My natural hair. Friday, I had hair. Monday morning, I looked like this. I need Mr. Spears to return my call or someone here. Mr. Eddie, you're awesome. Miss Mayor, you gave me the courage to stand up and
You and I have the same heritage.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And that's the only reason I interrupted. I'm going to leave this here for Mr. Spears, them, and for you. I don't feel good. I'm constantly throwing up, and I'm constantly falling asleep. I'm in the second stage, and I haven't been able to get anybody to help me. I've had to carry that.
I'm sorry, but do you mind? I'm not sure what you're looking for, and this may not be the time to get your answers for you.
My answers, them, is coming directly to Mr. Thomas and directly to Mr. Spears, because most of the people, city employees, them, like your code enforcement officer, took one look at it and said, I don't have time to talk to you. I come to see the mayor. I'm escorted off the property. I'm not a violent person. Nobody wants to listen to this particular issue. But only one person was hurt there, ma'am. That was me. It's okay to have cancer. But when you call somebody, after 25 calls, they should at least come and take a look. But for somebody to say, oh, they're beetles. Well, the beetles are eating me alive. Somebody help. The county assessors and the county environmental health said to talk to code enforcement. He addresses me and he says, I made a phone call for you, gal, quote unquote.
Here is my phone. Give me a call. We will find answers, okay? I'm sorry we can't help you now, but we will, okay? There's my phone number, okay? Please. We're good. We're good. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you. We will finish that.
I'm at 228 South Gemstone. I'm in apartment B, and my telephone number is 760-382-1828. Please forgive me for disrupting everyone, but anyone, the county listen or the city listen in the beginning,
We'll get you
the
answers,
county
but
wouldn't have
this
to get
isn't the
involved.
appropriate way we can get you the quickest and best answers, so thank you.
I'd like to
Please
leave
call
this
me.
here for your code
Please call me.
enforcement, tell him
Thank
he's
you.
right. You sure you don't want me to leave it for you, city clerk?
Okay,
It's
so we're
amazing how
on
Mr.
to
Spears
an
has time now. I'll
continuing
be
the
looking
same
forward
item.
to you, sir.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
the rest of your meeting. Thank you.
Okay. I like your hairdo. It's good. Do you think we could start a trend? I hope not. Okay. All right, where are we?
I think Mr. Spear was sharing with us about his meeting with one of his friends.
Well, yes, I had mentioned that Ted Meridian, he's district materials engineer for District 6, that's Caltrans, and he said that Caltrans does not internally do any micropaving. They contract for all the micropaving they do. And on Monday, I'd send him an email to ask him for any kind of information or documents or studies they did for Caltrans to arrive at that conclusion. And as of this meeting, I had not received that information from him on that.
So what are you looking for direction, or what are you looking for from this particular item?
Well, I mean, my thought was, it seems like I've contacted a couple other cities. I think we need to look in this matter more because we've identified that we have a significant issue for our pavement management study. If you look at the maps in there, majority of the roads that they say that we need to do, they call for slurry seal and micro paving on the local streets, which is what people have been asking us to solve for them. And so that's why I thought this would be a good plan. I didn't just talk to the company who makes the machine, I talked to the actual cities using it. And when I'm hearing from them, they're getting double and triple the amount of work done. That doesn't seem like something that, I understand it's a change in our culture, and sometimes it is easier to hire things done, but it's not always necessarily the cheapest way of doing things. And so I just think we need to look at this option more, and it seemed to me like this is a pretty low cost investment for the kind of results that we could see. And so, we are looking for capital expenditures, and so this was something that would go directly to a capital expense and help our infrastructure problem that we have.
You know, last meeting, we spent a lot of time discussing different ways to spend this money. And what I would propose, and I kind of agree with Lauren, I'm not saying it's a bad idea, I'm not saying it's a good idea, I think it needs to be researched more. And I need to apologize because a few meetings ago, we kind of had an adversarial relationship with the city engineer about requesting him to do something that we thought was a simple act, and it turned out when I researched it more, it was not such a simple act, and that was redoing the baseball fields. There's a lot more involved than just four things. There's blacktop and everything else based on the information I saw. So I don't want to shove anything down Public Works' throat. So here's what I would propose. And I know you've done a lot of research on this, and this could go along that way, but we've got basically $1,140,000 to spend. And I think the senior parking lot was going to run about $150. Is that correct?
That's correct. Actually, it's a little more than that, 179, isn't it?
Yes.
179.
Okay. I know we were kind of all in agreement on that last meeting of getting that done.
Yeah.
So I proposed it, so I guess I would raise that figure to 180. And then we have discussed the Down Street project, and one thing Lauren proposed last meeting is we could spend money real quick on the Downs project by paying approximately $600,000 for the power poles under protest, and that would be determined once our lawsuit is settled whether or not we get that money back. We know we should be able to get $400,000 back from the senior apartments that have a bond to move that one pole. And then the balance to go to Public Works, and if this thing works out, maybe it's a good thing to do. But I agree with Lauren. I think we need to look at a little more research on how it's going to impact us as a city compared to Bullhead and Modesto. But that would put the money there to be spent on public works, and if it determines that this is a way to go, that would provide almost $400,000 to do that. And the rest of that money could come from Measure V, I guess, because it would be, I'm all for doing 2 and 3 times as many streets as we've been doing. And if this is the answer to that, that's great. But if it's not, I don't want to spend $400,000 on something that is going to sit in the yard. Does that make sense?
So your motion then is to do the $600,000 for
the power poles, $180,000 for the senior parking, the balance to go to Public Works to do further research on Lindsay's proposal to determine if it will in fact work for the city of Ridgecrest. That would be my motion. And I think we've got some. I think a lot of people are here to talk to us about the senior. How many people are here to talk to us about the senior parking lot? So we've got half the audience, I think.
I'm going to second that motion. And then, so let's continue the discussion of at least that part and have public comment. Okay. Is there any other discussion?
There was a question asked about if we funded the senior center parking, what would happen to the CDBG money? Staff has contacted the county that that administers the CDBG block grant, and we have a response from Lorelei over at the county. And she said, I'll just read it. She said, first, if the project is already being implemented in design and we have reimbursed you or paid you, then the money must be paid back from your general fund. We cannot cancel a project that has already expended money. But second, if you reimburse the money or if we have not expended the money, we can move the project to another qualifying project, such as our ADA handicap project. Third, as for another year, because we asked the question, could we push this into the next year? She says, as for another year, you can. In other words, we could move it. However, we only have one more year of funding that's guaranteed. The current budget proposal, that's the current federal budget proposal, eliminates this program completely. Any money started with this money and money we receive in September needs to be completed without any future money. So you're taking a chance if you move it in the next year, but yes, with the repayment of funds expended, we can, in fact, move it to another eligible project, and we have the ADA project. We also checked, and the amount expended so far by Kern County staff, not anyone is about $4,500.
For the parking lot?
On the parking lot,
On the
right,
parking lot.
yes. For administration and their processing.
So are you recommending we do this or not do this?
Oh, I'm recommending you do it,
Okay.
but just so you know.
Just so we know the consequences. But
Exactly.
I know we got plenty of, we can easily spend that money on ADA. Right, isn't that right, Lauren?
Yes, and if I may.
It would probably
Mayor, if I
enhance our
might,
first
I have,
phase. Yeah.
Some additional information to consider, if I may.
Okay.
I conduct quarterly utility meetings with local utilities. And in those meetings, I go over city projects. And one of the projects discussed was the senior center parking lot. In attendance of our utility meeting is Searles Valley and Barry Wallace of Searles Valley. And Mr. Wallace inquired about the timing of the parking lot reconditioning, and told him that we had a CDB project and funding, and that it would take time in order to go through the design and authorization to construct. But he indicated that Searles Valley has a rather old water line that goes through the parking lot and would need to reconstruct that line before the parking lot was to be redone. And so I just wanted to let you know that there is somewhat of a dependent variable there of when Searles Valley might be able to, number one, fund the pipeline reconstruction, and then number two, to affect the design and construction of the replacement of that pipeline. So there is a bit of a dependent variable there on the timing in which we would be able to redo that parking lot.
I would like to make a comment.
Does he have any idea? I mean, a month, 6 months, a year?
No, at that time, he was just indicating, all we knew is what we had a CDB grant to do that, and was asking about the timing of that. Now, he did not indicate his timing. Only thing he wanted to do is be alerted in advance of when that would occur, such that he could start his process of funding and design and construction of the pipeline replacement.
Maybe we better alert him tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes. We can call him tonight.
Yeah, well,
send him a text message.
I understand what you're saying, but I think we need to alert him right away that we're looking at doing this fairly soon, so that he can get his wheels moving.
Yes, certainly. Now that if that indeed is the case, then most certainly yes.
Because we don't want to put in a new parking lot, then dig a trench through it.
Exactly.
And then
I would like to make a comment. Can I comment here?
go ahead.
All right. First off, I definitely agree with the fixing the parking lot for the senior center, however we twist to turn this. But the second thing, I would like to weigh in a little bit on what Chris Stevens is talking about concerning the roads. And I have kind of a little prepared statement. So over here it's like 4 o'clock in the morning or something, so I didn't want to take more time than what we had. But I do want to read something to you that I've prepared on this, because I've been looking and making some calls and researching also concerning this road issue. So here's my little statement. I'll give it to the media as well tomorrow. While there are hundreds of issues facing the city, it is necessary that we laser focus on certain rapacious items that consume a disproportionate amount of our hard-earned budget. We seem to argue for hours over minuscule issues, but when $100,000, $500,000, or $1 million expense pops up for ravenous roads, bam, we frequently approve without question. But after learning more and more about how this all works and how roads will represent an $80 million upcoming expense with no end in sight, I'm now taking a pause and wishing to hit this issue head on. Many years ago, when McDonald's cost of beef continued to rise without end, and when quality assurance could not be guaranteed, McDonald's made a very simple but dramatic business choice. They got into the cattle business, where they can control quality and ever-rising costs. It was challenging at first, but the rewards were terrific. Walmart did the same thing, was starting trucking and national distribution, and they got into the trucking business. And now that wages keep going up unreasonably and unexpectedly, Amazon took swift action and is now employing an army of robots. The examples are plentiful. To survive and thrive, cities need to be willing to take decisive and creative action as needed. Many other cities are now in the road business and saving millions. Therefore, it stands to reason that if we're going to be the ongoing Pac-Man carnivore devouring our budget year after year, then maybe we should cease and desist with the old ways of doing business. Instead of using overpaid consultants and large overpriced out-of-town vendors, maybe we need to buy our own equipment and hire our own team and train them up to handle this annual tasking. We will save a proverbial fortune while maintaining quality control. Tonight we have funds that are expiring, and I know, Mike, I agree with you. Some of these things appear to be popping up, but they haven't. I've been thinking about this issue of the road since the first council meeting I had when I got elected. So I joined, other council members, and Ms. Stevens been proposing that we use staff funds to start the process by purchasing one piece of equipment. We can build on it. It'll save us millions over the long haul. I really would like to free the city of the change of this roadway bondage so that we can control our destiny. We are over-regulated, overcharged on a regular basis for this routine and insatiable line item. I think we could take a stand now and start turning this thing around. So while I'm out of the country as president, if I were there, I would have made the motion personally. I vote a resounding yes for purchasing one piece of it, actually two pieces, with TAB funding. And we learn, we grow, and we build it so that in the next 5 to 10 years we can be independent. So respectfully submitted, me. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other comment from council? Public?
Yes, Councilor Mike Neal. I realize that I'm getting a ring here. Anyway, apparently what you're seeing tonight on the road work proposal is brought up a little bit late. However, I've looked at a lot of proposals in my lifetime working for the base, and you see two pieces of data from separate municipalities, basically giving you the same cost per square foot that they're getting their road work done for, which is at least half, probably more like a third or a fourth of the cost that we are paying out to well-paid contractors to get our road work done for. This possibly the only means by which we will ever get the roads in Ridgecrest taken care of. We continue doing things the same old way we've always been doing them, we're going to have to expect the same results, which is rotten streets all over town, and go out there and ask people all you want, and the vast majority of the time they're going to tell you, when are they ever going to fix my street? When are they ever going to fix my street? That's what you're going to hear 85+% of the time. You're not going to hear people say, oh, we need the pool so bad, it hurts the whole city. You're going to hear people talk about the streets. So I'm just going to say that based on what we've seen tonight, and it looks like pretty solid information, this is possibly one of the best suggestions that has come before this council to get road works taken care of in the last 20 years. So I'm going to agree with Mr. Maurer, almost 100%. Enjoy it, Mike. This is probably a rare time.
Can we frame that?
We could.
Take a
but
picture.
Find a way to get enough TAP funds to go ahead and get this road machine allocated and not, have all these problems with, mixing funds around between that and Measure B. If there's any kind of potential difficulty with that, I think we need to avoid that completely and get the thing online like Mr. Martin said. Let's get it under our belt, start learning how to use it, start using it, and start getting the roads fixed. Anybody who's ever done their own work of any kind, house repairs, car repairs, anything, knows that after the first or second or third time you do it and you get slightly up the learning curve, that you do it yourself, it costs a whole lot less money. And you know what? You don't have to do it quick. When I'm working on my car, I can do my logistics and I can say, okay, fine. If I took it to the shop, I could throw it in there. They can say, okay, I'll get it out done in 2 days because they've got a whole shop and they want to get me out quick. But if I'm doing it myself, maybe I can just work it out where it takes slightly longer if I have to, or do it in a different method. And then, but lo and behold, like I've told my sons many times, I can do that job. I can go buy tools I'm going to have for the future and still get it done for half the price I'm going to pay a shop to do it. And this looks like pretty much the same kind of situation. We can get the capability for our city, and it'll be here. And the more we learn, the better we'll get at it. And lo and behold, I bet we're going to find that we get probably 3 times as much street work done for the same amount of money as we ever would have gotten. So there's for that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Dave Matthews, excuse me, was a little confused there for a while because I didn't think we had finished the discussion on the penny pool, but I'm quite fond of Ms. Stevens' proposal here to buy our own equipment. Now, I think it was Mr. Spears mentioned that the contractors that were doing some of the paving were using 3 trucks.
That's
well, I personally observed the repaving of North Sierra View, and I don't know how many trucks they were using then, but it didn't seem like it was taking them very long to refill a truck, because they always had a truck ready to go when the first one, when the one in front of it dumped its load into the paver. So I think maybe that reloading depends on how far away you have to go, I guess, and where the project is. But I'm kind of torn here because I really would like to see the penny pool repaired and get back into function. So you guys are making the decision, and you're going to have to do it, and you're not going to please everybody. I can assure you that.
We're getting used to that, even though
we know that on almost every item.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stan Toro, and I think Dave is absolutely right.
We're not going to please everybody.
You're not going to please everybody. It ain't going to happen. It's something that was sort of addressed tonight, but I wasn't clear on it, is the time frame. We've had the TAB money since 2010. I know we're drawing to an end of when we can spend the money, but it's not clear when is the drop dead date to actually commit and have a contract for this funding. Can somebody clear that up?
Dennis, can you address that, please?
That would need to be determined as well. There's several reasons for that. One is there is the typical time frame from the issuance to bond. However, just prior to the issuance of actually the next year following that, the state eliminated the RDAs. The various municipalities sued the state. The determination by the state was either, it was in the spring of 2012 when the California Supreme Court decided that the governor was right and he could in fact eliminate the RDAs. So there is a legal opinion that says that the entire time was told from the issuance of the bond in 2010 to 2012, and the time doesn't begin till then. Well, then there's the fact that even when the Supreme Court determined that it was legal to eliminate the RDAs, the state would not allow us to expend the money, the TAB funds, until we paid a quota ransom of $3 million. Now that didn't occur until, I'm trying to remember, was it 2014 or 13? And so there's a legal opinion that our money was again told until we actually paid the ransom and was given permission by the state to spend the money. So for an answer, we're going to have the legal minds weigh in.
I was afraid of that. And I just assumed the legal minds didn't have to weigh in. I think if we could make an intelligent decision, we ought to make an intelligent decision and move on.
We're trying to spend it by August. To give you a short answer.
August was the time frame that I had heard
August.
rumored, so I appreciate the short-winded comment. We really need to get something done. Thank you, Mike. One thing that we haven't mentioned tonight is the senior center building itself. I haven't been in there in the last couple of years. I suspect it's not any better today than it was 2 years ago. Maybe it was 3 years ago when I was there, and I thought it was in terrible shape at that point in time. So I would like to see some money spent on that. I think the seniors deserve better than what they're getting right now.
Again, I think we have CBDG money for that, but it hasn't come through. So we have money that's supposed to be coming.
Well, as long as we could move that whatever it is, money to something else.
Well,
You know,
there's CDBG money for the parking lot and then for the interior. And I just asked Dennis if we could move the parking lot CDBG money to help beef up the interior part
And
too.
he's saying yes?
Yeah,
It's an eligible project, and her email says as long as it moves to an eligible project.
because we knew that there wasn't going to be enough money for the interior to get all the interior stuff done. So we could look
So-
at combining it to go for then you're making the interior get fixed, down the road, and then you're fixing the parking lot, which is the real hazard right now.
And-
Sorry,
and-
so
okay.
Peggy,
Well,
to fill
and
you in
Stan,
on what
I
I
have
just
to,
said.
I have to confess, I haven't been in the senior building since I became a senior.
Oh, well, in any event, it needs help, and I think the sooner the better. With regard to the micro paver, my feeling is yes, there is some risk, but if we're not willing to take some risk, we're not going to get the payoff. And if you look at the number of roads in our town that need help, this may be the one and only way that we're ever going to be able to do what we really need to do. And I don't disagree with the people who say we maybe need to look a little further into it, but quite frankly, I would believe two cities like Modesto and Bullhead before I would believe somebody like Caltrans. They have an opinion, and we shouldn't necessarily ignore their opinion, but I believe our purposes and our intent and our needs are more in line with Modesto and Bullhead.
And my proposal allows for that. And if we needed more money, you mentioned $300,000 in uncommitted Measure V money.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that was going to be my next comment, is that this is something that, in my mind, is right in line with Measure V and something that we could spend money on.
Now, Stan, I'm getting scared. Now, you and Mike Neal both agreeing with me in one day is just too much. I can't handle it.
No, I agreed with you one time last year, I think, actually.
But Mike didn't.
Well, hey, he's got personal problems. I'm sorry.
You need
Thank
Mr.
you.
Porter, and it'd be like the ultimate trend.
Yeah, the triangle. Turn it back to you, Peggy.
Oh, there.
Greg Buskey, 609 Wild Rose. My issue is with the penny pool, and I need to clarify something. I believe the mayor said, let's repair it. Is that what you meant, Mayor?
Pardon me?
When you said, let's just repair it, are you talking about the pool? I didn't understand it. I was a little confused on your remark on something when we were talking penny pool.
I think what we originally were talking about was what would it cost to bring it up to ADA standards and make the repairs that were needed so it could be open.
So
Is
are
that
you
the
in favor of
question
getting
you were
it back
talking
open?
about?
Are you in favor of repairing it? And
Am I in favor
Yeah.
of it? We don't have the money if indeed the cost now is back to the 1.9 million or somewhat less.
It is a historical part. John Penny gave his life so we can be here to voice our opinions on various issues in the city. I want to see it stay there. I want to see it be repaired. I'm a Vietnam vet also. I think the veterans organizations may have to get involved with this. I think we have money here that can be done. I thought it just needed the ADA standards. Now I'm hearing you want to repair it or pour concrete or something like that. I thought it was a usable pool. Now, I could be wrong.
No,
that needed to be brought up to ADA standards.
But also the concrete is deteriorating to the point it is dangerous.
I didn't
for
know
swimmers.
that. Okay.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
I know that
And
now.
that's the
Now,
almost $1 million.
in addition to the kids, it's fine for the kids. The kids need a pool. Okay. You have a lot of senior citizens and a lot of disabled veterans in this town that could use that pool. Now, I don't know about the water slide or whatever the heck this thing is, the slip and slide deal. In 5 years, we may not even have enough water for that. Put that on the back burner. Let's get the pool going to respect the veterans. I take it as a slap in the face to John Penny, the city, and the various other vets in town. That can be repaired. You guys can find the money. We elected you to take care of our problems. That is a historical cultural place. It's been, my kids went swimming there, my grandkids learned how to swim there. It's been there 40 to 50 years. It needs to be repaired. Should have never gotten that decayed anyways. I know the roads need fixed. Senior citizens, they got to have that taken care of too. The streets haven't been taken care of for so damn long. Nobody knows, what's the deal. You got to get new shocks on your car every 2 months. But anyways, let's get that pool going. You might be able to start some kind of donation. That's how it was built in the
Sir,
first
why
place.
don't you talk to the veterans groups and see if they can start a GoFundMe?
I'll let
like
you
that.
guys do that, okay?
Okay.
All right? You're our representatives.
Well,
And
sir-
I have friends that I will talk to that are veterans, of course. So I appreciate
Well,
the
maybe
time.
we can come up with that 1.9 million.
I don't know if I can come up with it, but I'd be willing to donate. I can tell you that.
Thank you.
Whatever I could afford.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilman and lady.
Bill Campbell. I was in the senior center today, so I'm up to date. And it doesn't look very good, and I think our city could do a lot better. I asked the chef today, or the cook, however you want to say it, asked him, he said he sent 85 meals to Inyokurn today. We're a good neighbor, right? That's a good neighbor, sent 85 meals. Okay, and then we did 64 Meals on Wheels today. Meals on Wheels, everybody knows what that program is about. People can't get out, so we take food to them. And then we had about 50 or 55 seniors at the senior center today to eat. My problem is we're talking about a parking lot, but we need to have a building fixed up too. It's kind of sad. It's the only senior thing we really have in town, and I think we should do better with it. I wrote to the Kern County so I could get a contract from the city to the county so I could know what, if I got up here and I talked about something, and I found out that the county gives us $800 a month for the building. And they give us $2,500 a year if we want to use it per year for the kitchen. So the city's out. What's the city out? The county pays for the help, the food, and all the city's out is for electricity or gas and maintain our building. And I think that's a pretty good deal for the city. As we know, the county, with the oil going down to, I believe it was $44 a barrel today. So the county's going to be after us again. And in this contract, it says we should keep this building that looks pretty nice, not like we're doing with it. I appreciate your time, and I don't know how much money this would cost for us to fix up the inside building. Tonight we're talking about all kinds of money, and it's kind of confusing that we don't make a definite choice of how we want to spend our money. The city council, about 3 months ago, gave the city center $38,000 to fix up things in there. And I have never seen anything fixed up in there. So I appreciate your time, and I think we should do better for our seniors in town, which this does a lot for our seniors, for the little money we're out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
My name is still Linda Linda Fuller, and I would like to address Penny Pool, and then I would also like to add to what Mr. Campbell said about the senior center. I've been in the community since 1959, and I've been a voting taxpayer, worked here many, many years, and so I'd like to, veteran gentlemen, I am familiar with, how Penny Pool got to where it is. Got how it is, not where it is. My question to the council people, how in God's creation did the pool get in such disrepair? And now we're doing the same thing to the city, or to the senior center facility. We're going to get sued. The ADA has been there a long time. As I said, I'm a commissioner for the Department of Aging. I'm very familiar with ADA rules, regulations, and guidelines. Somebody's not enforcing something. A poor lady comes up here to the podium with cancer and has to beg and cry because she can't get someone to help her. I'm almost embarrassed to say that I live in this community. What are we doing as a community? Why are we allowing these things to deteriorate to a point we get sued for millions of dollars? That money could have been used for something substantial. The street thing, wonderful idea. I'm sitting there doing the math in my head, and I'm not good with algebra, but what a spectacular idea. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news. And the slip and slide park? Nah. That's daycare for low income. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fuller.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council members.
You might have to lean lower.
Excuse me?
Closer to it, Norm.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Norman Alexander, and I'm here representing the Realtors, Ridgecrest Area Association of Realtors. We did send a letter out, and I just want to read that again, and it's concerning the parking lot for the Senior Center. The Ridgecrest Area Association of Realtors and its members would like to formally request you allocate TAB dollars that are available to redesign, resurface the Senior Center parking lot. We feel that it's very important to use these funds, that this issue for our seniors cannot be put on the back burner any longer. Using TAB funds will allow the city to send a clear message to our seniors that they are valued. We look forward to a positive outcome, and thank you for your attention on this very important matter. So again, we just want to reiterate that we are, and I think what I've heard, which I'm happy to hear, that everyone's kind of on board with that. Summer came this week, right? And the seniors have to get out the street and walk that way. And coming off the base today, walking from my office out to the parking lot, I'm like, gee, my knee, it's really warm. So I can imagine being a senior and having to go across that parking lot. Those few steps make a big difference. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public comment? Jason, can you answer one question for me? Can you address the inside the building funding that we are waiting on for the senior center, and what we were going back out to bid on some of those? Can you address those issues, please?
What we're currently, the CDBG money, what it's currently going to cover in the center? Is that what?
Yes, please.
Okay. Right, we're in the design phase. We're almost done with the design phase of that project, right, Warren? So after that, it will be going back to you, and then also to the Board of Supervisors for approval, and then after that, we'll be going out to bid. Correct, Lauren? Yes. Right. So we're getting close. We're not that far off on the inside project anyway. So what that's covering is some ADA compliance in the bathrooms, some cabinets in the kitchen, some flooring, some ceiling repair, or ceiling tile repair, some minor plumbing work, and that's pretty much covers it. Yeah.
Just so you're aware that we have not been ignoring the inside and the needs of, and those are just some of the needs. No one's saying it's a brand new building and it has everything it needs. I have an awful lot of people who come into my business and tell me the conditions of it, and I have two people who work for me who also volunteer at the senior center and do a lot of work there and tell me what it's like too. So it's not like we're not aware of the needs of the senior center, and we are working on getting them fixed. Will they be perfect? It will not be.
Peggy, while you were out, we discussed if we did our motion, that the CDBG money that was set for the parking lot could be moved to do more improvements in the interior of the
Okay,
building.
very good. I just wanted them to know what they were, so thank you. My apologies. I don't mean to reiterate everything again. Thank you. You had something to say.
No, I'm done.
Okay.
Unless you have.
I don't have any more
Okay.
questions of you. Does council have any more questions?
Can we move forward on?
So then, just to recover, so it's to cover the parking lot, the down street, and then put money for public works to look more into this idea. Okay.
I don't want to force this on Public Works tonight.
Right.
And I'm not saying, I mean, on the surface, it looks like a good idea.
Okay.
But I don't want to force Lauren to do something that maybe down the road he doesn't think is the right thing to do.
Okay.
So I want to give him time to do more research and make a decision he feels comfortable with, if that's.
Yeah, and I think maybe them going, maybe if they need to go to Modesto and talk to their counterparts or whatnot, that might be a worthwhile field trip.
Do we have travel money in the budget?
Dennis had some that he hasn't used.
Honorable Mayor, if I may. Yes, the devil lies in details. And, it does sound like a good idea. However, the devil does lie in details. We're dealing with a process that is, we're dealing with chemistry. We're dealing with seasonal use. There are some constraints on the ability to use that equipment and the materials. And I think it's very important that staff have an opportunity to seek out what the benefits are, and to be able to come up with a good decision, a good economic decision for council.
Thank you. Okay,
we
so
have a motion and a
let's
second?
call for the
Ms. Mayor,
Sir.
I just have a question. I don't know. I guess Keith might have to weigh on it. Are you guys making part of the motion to use the former parking lot monies for the inside, or is that going to be something separate?
To be decided later.
That would be something separate.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was not part of the motion.
Okay.
But it frees that money up to be used.
Rika, could you reiterate the motion for us?
The money be spent on the senior center parking lot at $180,000. The Down Street project, $600,000 for the power pole payment under protest. The balance to Public Works, which will allow for more research on the slurry seal machine.
So do we need 600 for the power poles, or was it 590?
591. I
Okay.
said approximately 600.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas.
Aye.
Mayor Breeden.
Aye.
Ms. Stevens.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, next item. Amendments to the municipal code developmental process, variance process, and public works variance recommendations for improvement. Mr. Culp.
Yes, Honorable Mayor. The Infrastructure Committee had asked staff to come up with some ideas for making the development process a little better by looking at a variance process for planning and for public works. And staff had prepared a number of proposed amendments to the municipal code that the Infrastructure Committee looked at and had some suggestions for changes in what staff had originally prepared. And what you see before you in your staff report are the amended amendments, suggested amendments to the municipal code. What staff is asking is to further direct staff to proceed with the crafting of the of the amendments to the municipal code and authorize the city attorney to work with staff in crafting the correct wording such that could be brought back to the infrastructure committee and for city council.
Okay, and so this motion, this summary is all the changes that you all wanted to see.
Yes, it summarizes its suggested amendments to those sections within the municipal code with suggested language that would have to be further crafted by staff and the city attorney to perfect the language. And it does also reflect the requested changes that the infrastructure made in our meeting and looking at the initial suggested amendments.
Okay, is there any discussion on this in council?
I have none.
Is there any public comments? Okay, then a motion.
I'd make a motion to approve.
A second.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas.
Aye.
Mayor Breeden.
Aye.
Ms. Stevens.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, discussion and probe. We
pulled
pulled
that.
that
Pulled
item.
14,
So we are then down to
Public hearings. Public
Hmm?
Public hearings.
public hearing.
Right now.
Number 15.
15
No.
is
15 is, 14 was pulled.
right. We got 15.
So we got 15.
Yes.
Public hearing.
Okay, 15, yes. Okay. Who is handling that?
Mr. Cole.
Mr. Cole.
You just thought you were able to go, huh?
He's got the last
You got the
two.
next two.
Yeah, if you do.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, City Council, this is the second part of the proceedings which we have to go through annually for continuation of our lighting, landscaping maintenance district as well as our drainage benefit assessment district. This particular item 15 is for our drainage benefit assessment. If you recall, the last council meeting, the council did three things. They made the initiation of the process, they approved the engineer's report, and they also set tonight for the public hearing. So tonight, to continue our process, what we're asking the council to do is conduct a public hearing, to hear public testimony, and to also look if there has been any written protest to the amendments for the assessment district, for the benefit assessment district. And then after hearing the public's testimony, to then adopt the resolution that confirms the assessment, and that would then order, then we would then ask City Council to order the levy and collection of assessments for this next fiscal year, 2017-2018. So staff's recommendation is to open a public hearing, hear testimony, any written protest, and second of all, to adopt the resolution that confirms the assessment and order the levy of and collection of assessments.
Okay, we will do so. I'm going to open the public hearing now and take comments. Any public comments? Any council comments? I'm going to close the public hearing. Is there any written?
No, ma'am. None
None.
received.
Okay, make a motion to adopt a resolution that confirms the assessment diagram and assessments outlined in the engineer's report, and order the levy of collection of the assessments for the district to be collected on the county tax rolls for fiscal year 2017-2018 as identified in the engineer's report. I should have just said so moved, huh?
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas.
Aye.
Mayor Breeden.
Aye.
Ms. Stevens.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, the next item, sir.
Item 16 is nearly identical to item 15, in which this is for the Lighting and Landscaping Maintenance District 2012-1. Again, this is part of our annual process. Last council meeting, you announced the initiation of proceedings, you approved the engineer's report, and you also set tonight as the night for the public hearing. And this item is, the staff is asking that the city council open up public hearing to hear testimony and any written protests, and then to, second of all, to adopt the resolution approving the annual engineer's report in order to levy a collection of assessments.
Okay, we will open the public hearing. Is there any comments from the public?
Good evening, once again, Stan Rotora. First of all, I apologize for not bringing this up last week. I apparently didn't read it well enough last week, or for the last council meeting. I was reading on page 11 that part of the cost is for a number of LS1 street lights. I'm curious, how did these street lights get to be LS1 street lights?
Well, that is a standard, an account that Southern California Edison establishes for the rate and also for the ownership and maintenance of those street lights. The LS1 is the rate that is typically adopted for street lighting within subdivisions, whereby the Southern California Edison is responsible for the ownership and maintenance of those street lights, and also establishes the energy rate for those lights.
Mm-hmm. How did it come about that Southern California Edison is the owner of those lights? My point, before we go into a long, detailed discussion here, my understanding is that the developer actually installed the lights, paid for the lights, did all of the construction and et cetera of the lights. Is that correct or not?
He paid for it. Southern California Edison did the work and then installation.
Okay.
Portions of the work were done by the developer's contractor, such as the conduits, and but Edison pulls wire through the conduits.
But they're paid for that.
Yes.
Right. So when the people in this area that we're expecting to pay for this lighting district, when they bought their houses, they're paying the developer for all the development fees for that area. Is that correct?
Yes. I imagine the developer does put the costs, his development costs, into the housing.
Right. And so I guess what I'm trying to get to is somehow, rather than the district, the lighting district, owning the lights and paying for the maintenance of the lights, they're paying for LS1 lighting, which is much more expensive than if the district owned the lights, I believe. Am I correct there?
The energy rate is lower for the if the poles were to be owned and maintained by the district or the city in this case, and then the rate is lower. Yes, that's true.
But the whole idea of the district is that they pay for it, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess what I'm saying is we have put a financial burden on the lighting district to basically, after they paid for the lights, now they're paying Southern California Edison for basically ownership of the lights. When, in my mind, the ownership of those lights should have gone to the district rather than to Southern California Edison. And even though I know there's nothing we can do now or tonight or whatever, I think the city needs to review its policy with regard to how we handle lighting districts. If we're going to ask people to pay for their own lighting, then we should at least not make them pay for the lights twice. We need to make sure that if we're going to have lighting districts, that we make those lighting districts as affordable as possible. And I totally agree with lighting districts, don't get me wrong, but my feeling is that had we allowed the district to own them, in the long run, the costs to the individuals in the housing area that this covers would have been a lot less.
Mr. Coach,
Thank you.
Can I add on to that? Is this lighting district set up any differently than other lighting districts that we have?
No, this is.
So this is the way it's been set up forever?
Yes,
is there a criteria that's used to develop these districts?
Well, there is. This is a very specialized area of engineering, this assessment engineering, that we rely heavily upon our consultant who has practiced and is proficient at developing these assessment districts. And this is a standard practice for assessment districts. I might add that, the same analogy goes with a developer building streets or storm drain facilities. We require the developer to build his street, and any storm drain facilities, we require him to pay for those facilities, and then he recovers that cost, of course, through his housing. Well, those facilities are then the cities in which we own and maintain those facilities. So in this case, the developer or the owner of those facilities is Southern California Edison, in which Southern California Edison says, well, you pay for it, you build it, and then we'll take it over, own it, maintain it, and here's your rate structure. So it's somewhat analogous to a developer building facilities for the city, in which he foots the tab and we end up owning it.
I'm sorry, I couldn't disagree with you more. The people that chose to live in that area paid the developer for those lights. And the city has a policy decision to make. Either allow the district to own and maintain those lights, or give the lights to Southern California Edison, who then makes the people buy those lights once again. And it is a policy decision of
They're really not buying the lights again, they're paying for the electricity.
Well, but the electricity is based upon the fact that Southern California Edison owns the lights.
Well, I don't disagree with you on that, because we looked at replacing the lights with more energy efficient lights, and Edison would not give us a break on the cost.
And it didn't have to happen.
Well, I guess this is something we could discuss in infrastructure committee.
I think the city.
I know Dennis and I have talked about not letting Edison have them anymore, or taking them back, but it's kind of hard to take them back.
Oh, taking them back is hard, but we don't have to make the mistake of giving them to Edison, so that our neighbors who are paying, that is, most of the people in this town don't pay for their lights. The people in these lighting districts are paying for their lights, and we're making them pay a premium because we're allowing Southern California Edison to take possession rather than allowing the districts to have possession. And I think that is a terrible precedent for the city to set. If we're asking the people to pay for their electricity, then we ought to at least allow them to have the costs associated with the district owning the lights. Thank you.
I guess we could discuss that in infrastructure and see what the policy would be.
And there's other factors there too, and the city or the district having the resources to replace or repair those marble light poles. That's well, we can discuss this further in the infrastructure committee, but there are other factors.
Okay, is there any other public comment, any other council comment? Okay, close the public hearing.
And this has got to be two separate resolutions, is that correct?
Yep.
I make a motion to adopt a resolution approving the engineer's report.
Second.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas.
Aye.
Mayor Breeden.
Aye.
Ms. Stevens.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Make a motion to adopt the resolution ordering the levy of assessments for fiscal year 2017, 2018.
Go ahead.
Second.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas.
Aye.
Mayor Breeden.
Aye.
Ms. Stevens.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, we are now on to committee reports. City org. City org met, and we basically came up with a couple of items that we're going to do. One is we asked for a quote to review the municipal code. 13,000, was I right on that, Rebecca?
$13,950.
$950 to review the municipal code, coordinate items that are in the municipal code that either contradict one another, and bring things up to speed as they should be and will be, and it'll take a year, and we will have an opportunity to come back to council for a motion to do that. That was basically it in org. Finance committee.
Finance, we mostly did, we reviewed the third quarter report and saw how it was compared to last year, and normally we're going to be reviewing that before now and before we do the budget, but due to the one-armed bandit back there, we had to get this late. So anyway, and Lindsay, what else did we do? I don't remember what else we did.
We talked a little bit briefly about the CalPERS and trying to figure out if we can get ahead of that. And
It wasn't, CalPERS wasn't too big of a hit this year, but in 2 or 3 years, it's going to be a major hit.
Yeah.
Based on the forecasts.
And so we asked too for more information to be brought back to us on that. So.
Okay. Infrastructure.
Tomorrow night, 5 o'clock.
Okay. Parks and Rec.
We haven't met since the last meeting.
Youth Advisory.
They're black until dark until school gets ready to start back up.
Okay. Action Committee.
Bian-
Meeting biannually, September
Yes.
and March.
Yes.
Okay. RACDB.
Due to the 4th of July week, they've rescheduled it for the 12th of July at 8 o'clock at Kermagee Center.
Okay. EDC.
We did not meet this month because we did not have a quorum, and so we will meet next month.
Okay. City, other committee boards or commissions.
I went to KernCog last Thursday. It was just pretty much routine meeting. Just like to mention that, we get a lot of comments and complaints about our public, allowing public to speak. KernCog allows you 2 minutes. That's all they allow you.
Madam Mayor, I went to the League of California Cities in Mammoth for Mr. Wallace, and everybody was there, but there was 2 people that came, representatives from the Assembly Republicans leader that stood in for Chad Myers and Paul Cook. And one of the 2 things they were talking about was Chad was talking about AB 227 to improve the CalWorks recipients of to exit the poverty through education. That particular bill, AB 227, would create the educational opportunities and attainment program that would provide education incentives, grants to CalWorks recipients to encourage and support low-income parents who reach certain educational levels and create additional work studies, slots, and support services for CalWorks recipients that were pursuing their education. The problem that they have with it is that in California, high-skilled economics it is nearly impossible to get a good middle-class job without a college degree. And unfortunately, the CalWorks recipients do not even have people that participate in it, want to participate in it, do not even have a high school education. So they automatically are disqualified for it. So they're looking at a way of trying to fix that to make it improved. And then the other thing they were talking about was AB 109 that we are very, very familiar with about how it's not working. And that was that report.
That's not working.
Okay, Lindsay? The only one I attended that was different was a GSA meeting, and I'm going to report just briefly that the PAC is up, approved, and will be meeting and electing their leader and working with each other to develop the goals that were set by the committee and their own, and that is that meeting. That's it on mine. Future city managers report.
Yes,
Madam Mayor and members of the council, really just one thing. We've been receiving a number of calls, particularly over last week and this week, and in terms of telling us that we did a poor job on repairing streets. And what it is our crews are busy right now prepping the streets that are going to be micropaved. And so what they're seeing is an incomplete product. So we just wanted to make that announcement that our crews are out there, and what you're seeing is the prep of a street that will be resurfaced. And so you'll just have to be a little patient.
Is that like some grinding and things like that?
Yes, exactly.
So if your street gets ground, that means it's going to get repaired. So it's not we're trying to destroy the street; we're getting preparation.
Good, thank you. Future agenda items. Anybody? Okay, mayor and city council comments. Sir.
I don't really have any.
Madam Mayor, I wanted to say in reference to the presentation that Councilwoman Stevens brought forth, that if, Mr. Culp, if they want to practice on Panamint Street, they're more than welcome to do that. Panamint Street needs a great deal of work. As a matter of fact, Mr. Spear, I think you have it listed as very poor. So let it be known in the records that we will be the first to volunteer.
Yes. First off, I just wanted to thank Dennis for his service as city manager and appreciate that he's willing to step back down and get some public works issues handled. And then also, I just wanted to remind everybody and announce that the indoor playtime has started this week, and they've had 2 days, and it's been very well attended, especially given this week's heat. So I've heard a lot of positive feedback about that. So it's Tuesday through Thursday from 10 to 2, and it's $1 per kid with parental supervision.
Thank you. Wallace, did you have any?
No, I just wanted to say that I want to thank the IT folks, because this call-in mechanism, I could hear everything perfectly, except for that one microphone, Dennis. I could hear everything perfectly, and it worked very well. So thanks to the IT folks. We're having 62-degree weather in Scotland, and we're 8 hours difference, so this has been an interesting night. I'm going to bottle some of this weather and send it back to you, Peggy, and you could make it a proclamation and see if we can't get it cooler in Ridgecrest. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Wow, the power I have. Thank you. Okay, well, so that we will adjourn. Just remember that the next meeting is on the 19th. We are not meeting on the 5th. So thank you all for coming.